Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the December monthly meeting of the El Dorado Hills Community Council. And we have some special activities this evening, including our guest speakers and some new members. So we always start out by introducing our leadership team by having them just briefly give an explanation of what their role is, what category within our strategic planning or other areas that they represent. And then following that, we'll do recognition of District 1 commissioners and committee members who may be present. So with that, let's start with Richard to get it going. We'll just move around this direction.
Good governance, what's government doing and how it's doing. There is also a more official statement on the supervisor's website about
Excellent. And Kathy Guerrero, I want to welcome you to our community council since you're a new member representing healthy communities. So would you like to just share a little bit about your background with our audience?
Thank you all. Thanks for taking care of half the introduction. I appreciate that. So I'm Kathy Guerrero, and I'm the executive director for First 5 El Dorado. We are your tobacco tax dollars at work in the community. And we invest currently in our libraries as community service centers by co-funding with our County Office of Education, navigators to connect you with services from birth to cradle to what do we call it? Cradle to rocker. So we are your
I like the rocker part better.
I think so. Actually, I think it was the board who said rocker was better. So this is my first meeting. I'm really glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning more about all that you do in the community.
Excellent. Chief Lilly.
Cool. Michael Anthal, I'm Deputy Chief with El Dorado Hills Fire Department. I chair the public safety group, and my main goal is just to network public concern that relates to public safety with either police, fire, CHP, or whoever that might be.
I'm Cindy Munt. I'm Supervisor Heidal's assistant, and I do the community information and outreach for the council.
I'm John Heidel, District 1 Supervisor for another 2 years.
I'm John Davey. I'm the chair of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. We're a group of resident volunteers that review and study proposed development projects in El Dorado County and El Dorado Hills and provide that feedback to the planning process.
And I am Glenn Krakow. I keep my eye on business development in El Dorado Hills, and I represent District 1 on the Economic and Community Advisory Board for the county and representing Supervisor Heidel.
And I'm John Vania. I'm the District 1 Planning Commissioner for another 2 years, and also the lead on infrastructure.
My name is Lauren Sunimoto. I'm a junior at Oak Ridge High School. I'm also the co-chair of the El Dorado County Youth Commission. I'm here to represent the youth sector and kind of provide a youth voice and just give kind of a boots on the ground perspective of what's going on within our El Dorado County schools.
So this is a major expansion for 2023 that we haven't had in the past, is bringing a youth contingent, youth voice onto our committee. So I think that's going to be extremely helpful for all of us to understand what's happening from cradle to rocker, right? We're going to get more of the cradle in with the 2 new additions, and we'll get the rocker in with some of us older senior representatives here. So with that, let's also identify any District 1 commissioners or committee members that are present. I see Don Mikulak. So Don, can you share with us what your responsibilities are? Thank you. And Don, I think was just reappointed, right?
Yes.
For another term. So
in January.
In January. Okay, so thank you for accepting the challenge of continuing in your current capacity. I think you've been with SWAC for what? 17 years. So, and you're willing to take on another, I think it's a four-year term. So thank you for your service and thank you for your continued interest. So, and Dr. Steve Clavier.
Behavioral Health Commission. On that,
Well, again, thank you for your continued service. Really appreciate that. So do we have anybody?
Wendy May.
Wendy May.
I'm sorry I was not given the unmute option before. Yes, sir. I am grateful to be here. I am your esteemed Tax Assessor Appeals Board Director, present, ready to help. And Janelle, I voted for you. This is Wendy May. Thank you for your presentation 2 weeks ago to my office.
All right, very good. Is there anybody else? Oh, John Rasler, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. John Rassler, El Dorado County Volunteer Ombudsman, and also Vice Chair of APAC. Always glad to be part of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And perfect segue for Tim.
Charter Review Revision Committee. I'm also on the fire board. I'm on a member of LAFCO.
Thank you for your service. Appreciate that. All right. With that, seeing no one else, I think we're ready to move on to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Do anyone on any of the leadership team members have any proposed changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll accept it as submitted. Public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting that we would encourage anyone who wants to speak to an item that's not on tonight's agenda, who's a member of the public, is certainly welcome to do that. We just ask that you have either one of the microphones that are available on the tables available, and you have to have the green light going, or come to the podium and use the microphone here if you would prefer to speak at the podium. So any public comment at this point from the members present in the conference room? Seeing none, do we have anybody with a raised hand on Zoom? All right, so moving right along. Let's go to item 4.
Oh, wait, John Rassler just put his hand up.
Okay, John.
Just unmute, John.
I'd like to thank Supervisor Hydall for bringing together the Director of Health and Human Services and myself to try to get meals started again, the delivery of meals started again at the El Dorado Hills Senior Center. Since that meeting last week, we have set out a large net to try to get either people to be employed or volunteers. So as of yet, I have no takers in either category, but I think this is. I want to thank John for getting this started. I really think we can get things going where we can have meals served at least in the beginning, maybe one day a week at the El Dorado Hills Senior Center. So I thank you, John. That's it.
Thank you, John. I'll make a little bit more comments when I get to the supervisor communications, because I have had some additional feedback from other people as well. So I'll provide that a little bit later. Any other public comment you're seeing?
No.
All right. So with that, we'll move on to our guest speaker, who also has a guest with her, Janelle Horne. She's the county recorder-clerk. And we invited her to provide an update on what improvements she's been making recently to her office area, and also just the service improvements that have been made to better serve our community. So, and then the plans also for future improvements, because what I've found about Janelle is she is one of these continuous improvement people, always looking for opportunities to make it a little bit better for all of our residents within the county, and also for those that serve in an employment capacity as basically employees of El Dorado County, because that's also part of the interaction, working together as a team, the collaborative effort. So with that, I'll allow Janelle to give you a little bit of a personal introduction on her background and then move into her presentation.
Wow, John, that was really nice.
Sorry.
Is this on? Okay. So my name is Janelle Horne, and I am your elected El Dorado County Recorder-Clerk. And I'm so honored to be here today. I did bring Katrina Christensen, who is the Assistant Recorder-Clerk for El Dorado County. We are very blessed to have this lovely lady here working for our county. She's been here with us for about over 4 years now, and she came from San Luis Obispo County, and with a total now of about 30 years of recording experience. So her experience in the recorder clerk's office is so valuable to the department in making sure that we're following law and statute and requirements and just making sure that we're up to date with everything. So I brought her along with me today because we have been doing this presentation. We've done it about 20 times now, as Wendy had mentioned. Specifically, we were reaching out to our title and escrow companies, and then we started reaching out to our realtors here in the community and letting them know what we were seeing within the department. So this is actually my first presentation to the public, is in general and not specifically related to an industry, I guess you could say. So. So the first part, before we get into the presentation here, I just want to give a real quick update on the office and what we have been seeing. So sorry, Wendy, if this is a replay of everything, but so the real estate industry had kept us very busy all last year, all the way into the middle of this year. A normal average recording day is about 250 documents a day. And that gets recorded, indexed, scanned, or imaged, and then placed onto our public record. So in that time frame last year, we were up to 450 documents a day, and which was a huge and significant increase within the department. I would have to say that we were able to meet those numbers because of our new system that we implemented that I had talked about the last time I was here. We implemented that at the end of August of 2020, and it has made the department so much more efficient. So we were able to handle all of that extra volume without hiring any more staff, and we didn't have any delays either. We were able to do the same thing as recording and indexing and scanning the same day. So, and I attribute that to our new system that we implemented. But I would like to update you on what we have seen since June. On specifically June 20th, we saw our lowest recording day that we have ever seen in the department, which was, what did I want to say the right number, 79 documents. So it was a significant decrease in the middle of the summer, which is usually a more heavy recording time. And so that kind of striked us as like, wait a second, what's going on here? And it was on a Thursday, which is also usually a heavier recording day. Ever since that day, we have seen, it bumped back up again, but we had seen an overall decline in our recording. So right now, we're looking at an average of about 125 to 150 documents a day, which is about a 45 to 50% decrease in our regular volume, which, as you probably know and are feeling it yourselves, is we think that that is due to the rate increases, inflation, the stock market, and then also this was an election year as well. So a lot of times people hesitate to make any of those big, large decisions until after the election. So, so that's what we had been seeing lately. I can tell you with my utmost confidence that our department is not going to have any problems meeting our budget, even though we have the decline. We have been very good about making sure that we are fiscally responsible. We don't spend too much. We only use what we need, and we will be making our budget for this year without any layoffs. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So even though we've seen a decrease in overall recordings, we have seen an increase in certain document types. And those document types are notices of default and notices of trustee sales. And if you're not familiar with a notice of default, what that is basically is if you have missed a payment and you are over 30 days late on your mortgage, they will record this notice of default to put the homeowner on notice that if you don't make your mortgage payment, that they're going to start the foreclosure process. And so we had seen an uptick in those document types. So I ran a report from January of 2021 to October, end of October, September, end of September of 2021. And then for this year, beginning of January to the end of September. And this is what I saw. So in 2021, we saw a total of 73 notices of default. This year, we saw a total of 191. That is about 150% increase of those notices of default. And then with the notices of trustee sales, we were at 59. And then in this year, we were at 107. So not quite 100% increase, but pretty close. So the reason for this is all speculation. I'm just speculating on why I think that this is happening. But the reason I think this is happening is if you think back to when we were in the depths of COVID, and there were lenders or mortgage companies out there who were doing the deferments. So what they did and how that works, when I looked into it a little bit more, because I always want to look into things when it has to do with mortgage because of my background. So, so when I looked into it, first it was going to be a 6-month deferment program, and then at the end of that 6 months, it was going to be a balloon payment. Then because the emergency order continued, they made that from 6 months to 1 year. And so a balloon payment, if you just think logically, how can somebody who's not been able to make their mortgage payment or have been unemployed or ill during that time, how are they going to be able to come up with a balloon payment of missed 1 year of mortgage payments? So usually if there is going to be any forgiveness of that type of transaction, what the lender will do is it's called a loan modification, and you have to go through all the background and application of all of that. When I pulled the numbers for the loan modifications, if we'd seen a big uptick or an increase in that, we were only about 20% more than normal than the previous year. So that makes me think that these lenders are not so keen to wanting to do a loan modification for whatever reason. I think that there's an array of reasons why. Maybe that homeowner when they were unemployed, maybe they racked up their credit card debt and they don't qualify for a refinance, or maybe they're still unemployed, and or the rates, they don't qualify. So with that, that's just basic information. I'm just trying to lay the ground to let you know that's my speculation. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what would make sense on these increases. So what do we do with that? Well, it's just information. We don't do anything personally with that, but we do have people who like to get that information so that they can investigate to see if it does become a bank-owned home, that they can purchase that in the future or something like that. But it's just information to kind of get a feeling of, because how what happens at our office is kind of a good idea of what's going on within our personal market here. You always hear about what's going on in the whole United States or statewide, but I can tell you this is what's happening specifically to El Dorado County and what we're seeing at our office. So that's just a little quick update on what's going on in our office here. So our presentation is now, because our office, we have the recorder side and we have the clerk side. So the recorder side is basically all of your real property documents and maps and all of that information. That's the recorder side. The clerk side is your fictitious business name statements, your birth, death and marriage certificates and licenses. So the clerk side is not what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about the recorder side of the office. So, and I have our best recorder at the department. And so we kind of tag team through this. She has her part, I have my part, and so we go back and forth. So And then I'll give you the cue when we are ready. So I'm going to hand it over to Katrina, and then I'll jump in when it's my turn.
If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So typically, I'm sure many of you have mortgages, correct? So usually a deed of trust will be a deed of trust, and usually it'll include an assignments of rent. What we've been seeing lately, it seems like bankers are trying to protect their assets a little bit more and their investments, and so they're including additional document types in with your deed of trust. You're not only seeing the deed of trust and assignments of rents, we are seeing notices of default, and Janelle explained the defaults before. They're also including security agreements. This attaches to your personal property. You have a classic car, you've got fine art, you've got jewelry. The security agreement will secure your personal property to ensure full payment of the debt. There's also covenants that run. Usually most people are familiar with covenants being like CC&Rs for your subdivision. It's not just that. It can be a number of other things. It can be successor in interest. It could be for a road easement. It can be for a number of different things. The other thing that we're seeing is an option to purchase, which is giving the lender the first option to purchase the property in the event that you're going to sell. And then last but not least is a power of attorney. Now, we've all seen little power of attorneys in our documents, but these are a little different. These are giving the lender full right to sign for the property, which means they could sell it at one point in time. So we've been going out to kind of educate people on some of the changes that we're seeing.
Yeah, so.
Who negotiate these things then? In other words, so all these things, you just have to take it or negotiate?
So that's why we're here with you today, because what we're seeing is these are not your regular mortgage companies. So not like Bank of America or your local lenders or anything like that. That these are specifically related to these new creative financing documents that we're seeing. And so we really want to educate the public to really understand what you're signing. And so so when we first started receiving these deeds of trust with all of these additional titles, usually these deeds of trust come to us just as a deed of trust. But as we looked at the documents, they had up to 9 additional titles within the documents. And for us, it is our job to make sure that we give the public constructive notice. So we, by law, are able to pull out these additional titles and make sure that we add them to our title or cover page, and so that we can index them so that people can find it on the public record. So with these deeds of trusts, I'm going to read to you the types of companies that are doing these types. When I first started looking into them, I looked up on one of their websites. And I'm not going to say the name just because we're in a public forum today, but the company said they are an investor and not a lender. That should be a red flag number 1, to know what type of company are you dealing with here that has an interest in your home. I'm going to read to you what they say on their website. This investor is a way for homeowners to be paid today for equity they have accumulated in their property without getting a loan. We invest alongside homeowners, providing cash today in exchange for a share in the home's future value. Homeowners can settle the investment anytime within 10 years. So, with my background in lending, this makes me question, what is a share in that homeowner's property? What are you giving away in order to work with this company? And so as we did some more research, we found out that there are a total of 4, maybe 5 of these investment companies that are offering this particular program for homeowners. So let me give you an example because that's easier to understand. Okay, what are you talking about? So for example, you have, and I pulled this off of one of their websites, say that you have $300,000 of equity in your home. This company will give you $150,000 out the gate, no questions asked. All they do is a evaluation of your property and appraisal, and you sign away. And what you are basically doing is, depending on the company that you go with and the program that you decide to go with, they are asking for up to 43.5% of your future equity that you accumulate in your home. And that is the agreement that you're signing with them. So say that in 10 years, or when you decide to sell your home, example, you gained $100,000 of equity, additional equity. You will be giving this company $43,500 of that equity, of your future equity of your home. So this is a huge red flag, because for homeowners, your home is your biggest investment, and it is usually a lot of people's retirement plan. And when you are taking money out, so like when you do a regular home equity line of credit or a home equity loan, the intent is you are borrowing that money and then you pay it back. And then if it's a line of credit, you borrow the money, you pay it back. So it's always there for you. You are not hindering your future equity at all. Whereas this program, so I mean, if you get $100,000, $500,000, $1 million of equity in your home, you are going to be giving it away to this company because they gave you a little bit of money up front. It is not the best program out there, and so I'm trying to educate people because I can see how these companies, they are protecting their investment, and they are doing this in all of the titles and all the things that you don't normally read. So if you are a homeowner and you have done a deed of trust, if you have a first mortgage, you've gotten a second, you're used to this document. You've seen this document before, and you're probably not reading it. And you just go ahead and sign because you've seen it before. You think it's like all the others, but not knowing that you're giving away your property rights, which
They
is...
are being titled as, they are coming through initially being titled just as a deed of trust.
Mhm.
It's not till we started pushing back and requiring them to add a cover sheet listing all the additional 8 titles
Mhm.
that, and the individual, until they get that paperwork back, may not have realized what they'd signed, and it's already been recorded.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah. So that is a tough one because really, I mean, they signed it, and mhm. Yep. Yeah. That's so sad. Mhm. Mhm. You got it. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so that's the other big question is, they're banking off of, you think, oh, future equity. Well, what happens when your value goes down? Is that when all of these come into play? That they can call it due and then say, you know what, we want the money back now. And then now because your value has gone down even more, that they're not even going to get their initial investment back, the 150,000, that they start to go after your secured, your personal property to make that investment whole. That's why it's very scary. And that's, you know, we had been going out to the real estate community to educate them because they know most of the homeowners in the community because they help them get their homes. So, but yeah, it's just educating people so that you can share. You have the knowledge now to, you know, talk to your family and your friends. Be very careful about the creative financing out there because, and I don't know if I remember, I don't think I said this, is that I missed this part, is it sounds too good to be true because one, they do not have a credit report pull. They do not have, they do not pull, so they don't have credit qualifications. They don't have income qualifications. You don't have to qualify for this for the income, and there's no payments. So, I mean, it sounds like a great thing because, oh, I don't have to pay it back for 10 years. I don't have to, you don't have to look at my credit. You don't have to look at my income. All they're really doing is looking at your property. And so those are huge red flags. So that's why we've been doing this and going out and talking to a lot of people and educating them. But like what you said, they signed the paperwork legally. It's, you know, they're binding themselves to a contract, and it'll be really hard to, I mean, unless they're very, well, let's take it back. So what was this? When did we do our last presentation? Wednesday? Wednesday. So on Wednesday, last week, we received one of these documents to get recorded, and they changed their wording. And in the back of the page, do you have it with you? They thought they could outsmart us, yeah. Do you have that document here? Okay. Can you tell them what they changed on the back where it says?
Oh, it refers to in bold caps that for the signer to make sure that they've read all of the documents, all of the emails, any conversations that they should take, basically review all of that information prior to signing. You don't usually see that in a deed of trust or not, but it's bold, all in caps.
But it also said all correspondence and all other documentation is like void compared to this document. Mhm. That's how I read it. Anyways, so so just be very careful. If you're working with a lender or a company that you've never heard of before, that's, you know, again, they're an investment company. They're here to make money. So. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a couple things in regards to that is I worry about our senior community in these because, I mean, a lot of our seniors, if they are just living by their SSI and or their, you know, very limited amounts that they have, they're on a limited income anyways. And this might sound great, a great deal, or, you know, they don't have to make payments on it. It's not going to ruin their budget. I'm familiar with reverse mortgages. I am not a huge fan of reverse mortgages, but sometimes there is a place for them, right? There's a place for them. If you have somebody who is not able to make ends meet every month, then it makes sense. And in this case, I would steer somebody to a reverse mortgage over this other program because at least they're paying themselves their equity instead of with this program, they're paying somebody else their equity. So, so anyway, so that's just that new document that we've been getting. The next one, if the next slide.
So what we've just recently started seeing in April was a nationwide real estate brokerage company that is offering homeowners benefits agreements. They are offering customers between $500 and $5,000 to sign a homeowner's benefit agreement. This requires no credit check, no escrow fees, no monthly payments in exchange for signing the agreement. Well, if you go to the next slide, the document that they're actually signing, they've titled it as an agreement, but what they've actually signed is an agreement, a lien against their property, and a 40-year covenant. The 40-year covenant is that you will list your home when you go to sell with this brokerage company for 40 years. It's crazy that they would try and obligate someone for a 40-year covenant. One of the things that we've been finding out is when they're submitting it just as an agreement and it's being recorded as an agreement in other counties, when a title company goes to do the initial preliminary escrow, preliminary check, title report, the agreement's not coming up as a lien that's being owed. So we are requiring this company to change the title of their document to an agreement, a lien, and a covenant. This company, in a separate document, they have agreed to a price or a value of the property, and your early cancellation fee is 3% of the value. So they're basically still collecting what a real estate listing portion would be. So if you're trying to move to another home, move out of state, every penny counts. This is also affecting our real estate agents because they may be asked to give up some commission. So that's part of the reason why we've been going out giving information on this document. We have only recorded 15 of these in our county. Sacramento County has recorded over 100 the last time that we looked 3 weeks ago. And in Sacramento County, it's only titled as an agreement. But for $100 to $5,000, they're giving a 40-year covenant.
So really quick, when we looked into it and we started talking to our title companies, we were asking them, how are you going to insure this property to the new owner that has this covenant on there for the new owner? And so they took it to their councils and got their opinions back, and they said, basically what they would have to do to insure this property, they would have to do a full release of this document, releasing the lien, releasing the covenant, releasing the agreement, canceling everything, which then triggers a cancellation, and then you're required to pay that 3% if you didn't use them as your agent. So really, 10 years down the line, are you going to remember that you got $500 from this company that you don't remember the name of? And then now you owe them 3% of your sales price. So that's why we're, again, out here trying to educate people, use a local company, use somebody that you know. They don't do things like this. We did just, it was Friday, I had an agent send me a newspaper clipping from the Florida Attorney General. No, it was the Florida Times. Florida article was from there, and basically the Attorney General in Florida is going after this company for misrepresentation and basically buyers not, or homeowners not understanding what they signed. So that's the other document that we have seen. So I tell you all this not to scare you, but to be able to show you the tools on our website to know, if you are looking at purchasing property, how do you know if the current owner has something like this? How do you know you know, maybe your elderly parents, how do we know if they've ever signed anything like the other document that we signed or that we have? Well, next slide, please.
So you can visit our website at www.edcgov.gov/recorder-clerk. You'll go under official records and click to search the El Dorado County Official Records Index. This index is available 24/7, so there's no reason to not visit our site. If you go to the next slide. Basically, to search the property or the owner, you need the owner's name. Do not try and search a property under the APN number alone. APN numbers can change, and the incorrect information could have been put on the original document, and then it just continues to go from there. So make sure that you're searching for people by their name. As you start to type in the information, it's going to start to auto-populate for you, and then you can select as many different versions of that name as you'd like. If you go to the next slide. So this is what the screen will look like. As you can see on the far left-hand side, it talks about the different types of documents that are recorded. And then to the right is the document number, the type of document, and then the grantor and the grantee. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So we've given you a list of common document types and what they mean. We've given you the definition of a grant deed, a quitclaim deed, deed of trust, declaration and covenants, conditions and restrictions, power of attorney, subordination agreement, substitution of trustee, and full reconveyance. And then if you go to the next slide. Other documents that you may not be as familiar with would be an abstracted judgment, mechanics lien, covenant, UCC filings. Those are also what they use when you're doing solar panels. They'll record a UCC. And then there's the notice of compliance, notice to correct, and the notice of non-compliance. These documents are usually submitted by either the city or the county for recording. And then there's a certificate of compliance for the surveyor.
Calls from people, help, you know, code enforcement, you know, or whatever. And I had one individual who was working with, I'll just say county staff. And then, you know, he was going one avenue through management, and then code enforcement just decided, we're going to do a notice to correct and put it on his title. So does he have to work through that staff to get that, or can he engage you guys to assist?
So I can advise them on where they need to go. Basically, we are the library for the county when it comes to documents. If it meets recording requirements, by law, we are required to record that document. I can tell them that, you know, a lot of times maybe what the information that the assessor's office has may not be the same as what's in planning and buildings, to make sure you cross-reference that. So I always tell the homeowners, you know, pull your documentation that you have from the assessor's office, because, like, for example, if they have paid for a permit and they just forgot to get it finalized, and they've already started to pay on those improvements in their property taxes, it would show that in the assessor's office. And then all they would need to do is schedule with the planning department or code enforcement to come out, re-inspect, and make sure that it was completed, and then they sign that off. So I just guide them on where they need to go. There's nothing, the thing is to file a release, they have to do all of that. It comes from the planning department, and the planning department sends that document to us to record.
And in defense to the planning department, they do make numerous attempts to contact the property owner to try and resolve the matter, but it depends on who the property owner was at the time that the initial paperwork was taken out.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. So that was the other thing that we've been talking about, because of the code enforcement has been very active over the last couple years, and they are going back on complaints that they had received that they never followed up on. We do get a lot of phone calls from the public asking us, why did this get filed? I don't know why. Can you lead me in the right direction? So we are telling the realtors in the community, if you're working with a buyer, please make sure that they check our office first as well, because to do their due diligence to see if there are any of these on there, because from a complaint that was filed with the county, and there was an escrow that it was in escrow and they were about to sell, they were selling, and they pull a preliminary title report. This was not on there when they originally pulled the title report, but they always pull it again right before closing to make sure that there hasn't been any liens or judgments or anything else that pops up so that they can issue a clear title. In this particular case, in between that time of the preliminary title report and when they did that final pull, a notice of noncompliance was filed for what the county was stating was an unpermitted addition. And the homeowner was saying, well, I bought it this way. I didn't know. So they went back and forth. It wasn't something that could be resolved right away. So that escrow fell apart. And it took, I think, up to a year to resolve. So that's why we're educating our realtors. Please make sure that they check if there's anything. In that particular case, it wouldn't have popped up, but asking also the planning and building, is there anything outstanding that hasn't been recorded yet?
Yeah, I learned a lesson on another issue, and where a property went into default, the bank bought it, but the new owner that bought it from the bank, there was an outstanding issue, and the bank was not liable, but that got kicked to the new owner and it wasn't disclosed. And I thought, that's interesting. So the financial institutions are off the hook on these things. Remember that one, John?
Yeah, but I didn't know all the facts.
Yes.
So sometimes it's in the nuance category.
Yeah, but the guy, so I would think these laws would apply in respect to full disclosure, but the financial institutions weren't legally obligated to do that. And then code enforcement shows up. Oh, by the way, you've got to do this. You got an unpermitted kitchen or whatever else. And
Yeah.
so I find that interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about today is, yes, I'm sorry.
Types,
Yes.
under covenant, at the end of that sentence, it says non-performance of certain, and it says ADS. What is that?
Accessory dwelling, I think it's at ADUs, right? It's a typo, but it should say ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit.
ADU.
Yes. Sorry about that. Nice catch. Yeah, granny flat. That's what, yeah. So before I move on to our next topic, are there any other questions on what we had talked about? Yep. Yep. Mhm. 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 That's actually our next topic. So, perfect segue. I'm so glad you asked. So, to answer your question really quick is, like I said before, by law, legally, yes, we cannot determine if that is a legally sufficient document or not, or if it is fraudulent or not. If it has all the information on the document that meets recording requirements, by law, we are required to record that document. But California, I would say, is really great. I don't know what state that recorder was from, because every state does things a little bit differently. But here in California, there are lots of things that need to be on that document in order for it to meet recording requirements. And the biggest thing is the notary stamp. and it has to be notarized. And so anytime a document is presented and it's specific on where it's located, it has to be legible, and how that notary section is filled out, it has to be complete. Whereas maybe some states are not as particular. Um, the thing is with identity or not identity, with title theft, it is not common. Where you would see that being common is it's common with family members, neighbors, and friends. It's not going to be somebody that you don't know. And so I give you this here because we have worked with our district attorney's office. They have a real estate fraud division within their department, and we connect with them on many occasions. And so what we do is anytime that we are presented with a document, and specifically related to the document we were talking about with the future listing agreement, we did take, when we first received that, we did take that to the district attorney's office fraud, real estate fraud division. We submitted to them to do an investigation because we didn't think it was legal. It seems fishy. Is this document even something that should be recorded? We felt because of where it was located in Grizzly Flats, were these people being targeted specifically? So when we submitted that document to the district attorney's office, they did an investigation, and what they came back and told us was that they talked to the homeowner. The homeowner received $800, and he was aware of what he signed, and he said, my kids are going to have to worry about that. So he needed the money. Another interesting fact about that particular one is that I don't know that this company knew that there was no longer a structure or an improvement on that property because it had burnt down from the Caldor fire. So, so I don't know. So I think that they actually lost in that investment, but I'm not sure. So in that case, and here's another example specifically related to title fraud, is our staff is so good. When we have customers who come in, they ask a lot of questions. One, because it's part of their job to make sure that the document is filled out correctly. So in this particular circumstance, we had an elderly gentleman come in from Georgetown, and he came in with a younger gentleman. And our staff started asking questions. Oh, are you guys related? Because there's with the documentary transfer tax, it's zero if you're related. And they said no. So that's, oh, okay. Well, and then they asked, do you live around here? And they were just acting funny. It just, you get that gut feeling of there's something wrong with this. So what they ended up doing, and what we ended up doing, is we recorded it because it met recording requirements. But then it was transferred to the district attorney's office, and they did an investigation. They were unable to get a hold of the homeowner by phone. So they went out to the property and spoke with the homeowner and found out that his intent was not to give his property over to this individual. And so when the district attorney's office contacted that individual, he got a little pissed that he was being investigated by the DA's office, and he transferred the property back to the homeowner. So they do a really great job on what they do. They do take it seriously, and they do investigate. So that pamphlet that I gave you is from their office. We give those out to homeowners anytime that they have questions. There's a hotline on there. There's an email address. And anytime that you feel or you know of somebody that just doesn't sound right, or you think that a family member is trying to sway them out, you can report it. You can report it to them, and then they can do an investigation before it gets to our office for recording. But another thing that we have done within our office to help ease the minds of our public is April 1st of this year, because we were getting so many questions about what you had mentioned, we decided to take it upon ourselves to help put some ease of mind for for those who are homeowners in our county. And what we did is anytime a document is received over the counter or through the mail, because that's where most of the fraud is going to happen, because electronically recording, those are submitters who are approved through the DOJ and all that. They have insurance and everything. So it's going to be through the mail or over the counter. Anytime we receive a quitclaim deed, we will send a letter to the homeowner of record that there has been a change of ownership. And it's, when they receive that, it's within a week. It's not months later. And so they will get that. And if it is legitimate, then they have no worries. If it's not, then it has the contact information on there on how they can contact the DA's office. So then the other question is do you need to pay for a service? Do you need to pay for a service to help have somebody monitor your deed? Okay. The answer is no. You do not need to do that because I just gave you the tools on how you can search our website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All you have to do is enter in your name and pull up on there. Has any documents recorded that I don't know of, right? And you can do that for free. And so hopefully that eases your mind that you can do that and you don't have to pay anything to do it, because those companies, they are not proactive. They are reactive. So what that means is that we have several companies that purchase our images and our index on a monthly basis, and we do a download for them. And those are the companies that purchase that. And so you're not going to know until after the fact anyways. So like I said, they are a reactive company. They would let you know a month or however long it's been, but you'll probably get our letter from us first before you hear from them. So anyways, is there anything else that we need to talk about? So the last slide there is, I have to say, I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell already, but we work really well together. We want to serve the public to the best of our ability. We want to be available to you anytime you have a question. I want you to know that you have access to me at any time. You have access to Katrina at any time. So our main email on there is, it goes to myself, Katrina, and one of our supervisors. And one of us will respond to that, usually within 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how busy we are. But we also put on there our main work lines, our direct work lines, and our cell numbers. So, any question is not a dumb question, because you're not as familiar with the process or anything like we are. And so it gives us so much joy to be able to help you through something that might be stressful or concerning, and being able to relieve your mind and be able to get things that you need. It's what we do. And so, I hope that, one last thing, as John wanted to make sure I talked on, because I like to do this, is that anytime that you guys want to come and do a tour, I would love to show you the changes that we've made to the department since I was here last. So when I was here last, I had talked about doing the restructure on how we serve the public, how our counter is going to be different, and it has all been done. And so being able to show you all the changes that we've made from our system, our software system, to the lobby area, being able to add a wedding venue, and being able to work on our map project, which is preserving those documents for the future. Just being able to show you that is very exciting. And so anytime you happen to be up there and you just want to pop by, I would love to give you a real quick tour if you'd like. And or if there's a group that wants to come up, I can do that too. I actually have Gold Country Retirement Center coming up next week or the week after to do a little tour. So any groups that you're a part of that might be interested, I want to invite them as well. So I hope I didn't go over my time today, but
as you have discovered this sort of decline in filings.
Mhm.
Have we seen that statewide? Do we know? Have we talked to other counties or?
Yes, so when we went to our conference, our recorders conference in September in Riverside, the whole state is feeling it. And there are between about at that time, so in September, they were about 30 to 45% is what they were seeing. And that's where we were at that time as well, and we've declined a little bit more. But I did actually, just a little note, I ran into one of my old lender friends in the supermarket yesterday, and she said that her phone has been ringing off the hook. So she said things have been picking up for her. So she said the interest rates in the last 2 or 3 weeks have gone back down about a whole point. And so hopefully we will be seeing that within the next 30 to 45 days when they go to record. But so that's good news, I think, is that, that election's over now and rates are better. So maybe we'll see an increase.
And as recorders, we like to say that we're with you from birth to death.
Very good, very good. Anyone else? Richard?
This recent COVID situation created a impact on many people's income flow. At the same time, real estate prices continue to go up. First part of my question would be is these, I'll call them clever corporations, do they seem to arise during these kind of economic challenge periods? And if they do, in 2007 and 8, when we had the real estate deflation, I should say.
Yeah.
Were there similar circumstances? I know you weren't
Yes.
there. But
I was in lending then. So do you remember the pick-a-payment loan? There was it was called a pick-a-payment loan back then. And that was one of the huge, I remember when I was a notary, I was signing a lot of those in Serrano. And so a lot of people lost a lot on those loans because it was basically a negative amortization loan. So when you decided to pay less than your regular mortgage payment and less than what your interest was being accumulated, they were adding that additional interest onto the back of your loan. So basically your loan was getting bigger instead of smaller like it should have been. And the problem with that is that those particular buyers were purchasing properties with that type of loan that they didn't income qualify for. And they were only qualifying on the minimum payment. And so that's how they got into trouble. So that was just one of the examples back then of the bad loans. But yes, that was at that time again, as we all remember, values were going up so high and people couldn't afford it. So they were coming up with these great ideas to qualify homeowners. A lot of those loans are not around anymore. I haven't heard of them coming back again. But what I did see was that because of it was getting higher, people started going back to the adjustable rates. So you got to be really careful. If you can't afford to pay or can't afford for a fixed rate, that adjustable rate is eventually going to adjust. And if you can't make that payment or your income hasn't increased enough to make that payment, you need to be very careful. So,
Well, and in the past too, I think a lot of the lenders, they only had them as a deed of trust and assignments of rents, but they also were willing to do the modification just to not have the house vacant. It was better to add a balloon payment at the end. So there were some loan modifications that occurred last time. I think this time now more of the investment brokers, they're securing their interest when they're going after your personal property, which they did not do in the past.
Anyone else in the audience have a question or comment? Yeah, Ron.
My question is, the investment firms, are they allowed to operate in every state? Or is any of the states that have they outlawed those types of business?
that's a good question. question. So as of when I tried to do a little bit more in-depth research on who these companies were, when I went to the Secretary of State's website, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but within the last year, they changed it. So now you actually have to pay to see those documents, whereas before you used to be able to see those filed documents. So the most that I could get from just the initial view without having to pay for the document was I noticed that the LLC was registered in Delaware. So that makes me think that they are nationwide. And they just had filed their LLC.
With these companies, we're working really closely with our Recorders Association and our legislative committees to try and see what we can do to help, like with these real estate covenant agreements and liens, as well as these other investment companies, just to make sure that there's more consistency throughout the state, that we're all collecting for the multiple titles, so that we ensure that the appropriate construction notice is being given. And then maybe they won't want to do business in California.
That's the goal, right? So I can tell you that when we went to our meeting in September with all of the recorders throughout the state, well, not all of them attend, but most of them. And we had actually brought up that specific one related to the future listing agreements. We had brought that up to our association, and at that time, nobody really was aware of that. So now, the association is very aware of it, and it kind of grows, right? So we are going to new law next week, which is another meeting, and at this meeting, because we said we wanted to bring it up for mutual problems again, we want to talk about it again because it's still an issue, and now more counties are dealing with it. They wanted to bring it up and not just mutual problems, but they wanted to bring it up in a full discussion. And we just got that email today. So we are working on it, and hopefully we will be working with our ledge committee to be able to hopefully bring it to the Attorney General's attention so that we don't have those here. And then also looking at working with like EDCAR. So EDCAR is the El Dorado County Association of Realtors, working with them and the people who are on CAR, which is the California Association of Realtors, that they're bringing it to their ledge committees as well. And when we're telling them about these new loans, hopefully they'll bring it to their committees as well, so that, you know, we don't have homeowners who sign something that they didn't really understand. So, yeah.
Anybody on Zoom that has their hand up?
Yeah.
Wendy May.
It's a lot of info, I know.
Oh my goodness, it is so much info, and forgive me, Janelle. I am, you know, I've already heard this presentation, and so don't apologize for duplicating efforts. This is why we had you into our office a couple weeks ago, is because it's really scary. Yes, I'm also concerned about our seniors, but I'm concerned about our entire population. I hope that our Department of Justice is going to go after these people, because, the unfortunate thing is a lot of people don't read the documents that they're signing. And so they lean to the people, whether that be our title reps or we, the realtors, which is really hard when they go out on their own and seek this lending source out, which leads to so many other questions. Are these lead sources, which I know, Janelle, you and Christine and Katrina don't know, are they phishing? Are they purposely trying to reach out to people who have owned their home for a certain period of time, or that they know are just about to file foreclosure, or, whatever, because they've already maybe been delinquent on a payment or two. This just opens up such a huge ball of wax that I try to educate myself as a realtor after 34 years in this business to stay ahead of these curves. But this is a curve I'm not even sure how to stay ahead of. So thank you so much for making sure that your outreach is broad, to make sure that you reach every person that can possibly hear you. I will reach out to you because this isn't even a question. It's more just what can I do best for those people that I serve on everyday basis, which are not just seniors. That's my primary service. But oh my goodness, it's scary. And again, I asked you this when you last spoke to my meeting. I have to assume the Department of Justice is involved. But this is a 3-4 pronged sword, for goodness sake. So again, I guess I'm just thanking you for your time and telling you, expect a call from me tomorrow. And thank you for your time again, because I'm even more concerned than I was after the first time I heard this message.
Scare tactics, I know.
Totally.
Really quick.
Thank you, Wendy. Wendy May.
For your customer, the person that reached out to you, I would refer them to the DA's office.
I was going to say, I sincerely appreciate having the brochure. I did look it up and found that it's online, so I'll be sending it out to all of our navigators tomorrow so that they have access to that information. And I also wanted to offer, if you're doing any consumer awareness, I'm really happy to put it out through social media. Each one of our community hubs has a social media page. If you're doing any consumer alerts, we'd love to be partners in making sure that more folks know about it.
Sure. If you have somebody to help me put all of that together.
I have somebody who's
in
actually
something
really
that
wonderful, so
wants
I'll
to
send you
read
an
it.
email and maybe we can make it concise with some links. So I'll
Okay.
follow up with you and we'll just make the
I would love
connection
to
and see what
help
we
in
can
any
do.
way that I can. Yeah.
Great, and we'd love to help you.
Oh, thank you.
Put it out there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you again, John, for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Please feel free to forward people who have
We
additional
definitely will.
questions.
I love the collaboration over here already,
Yeah.
so that's great. And Janelle and Katrina, thanks again for
Yeah.
presenting
So
this information, which is very important to our public, so
So
appreciate it.
welcome.
Thank you. So we're going to move to item 5, supervisor communications. I'm going to try to get through this fairly quickly. I have some minor edits and some of the comments that are nothing new on the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan project has been received to date for public review. Evidently, there was some misunderstanding about what my comment was there. There's nothing we can provide for public review yet. The county development agreement team is meeting with the developer at their request. So as soon as we get something we can present for public review, we'll definitely share that with you. But to date, there's nothing that's available. It's to make modifications to the development agreement, but I don't know the full extent of what those modifications are. So
if those modifications done, would that have to go back then to the planning?
perhaps, not necessarily, it depends. The development agreement, as I always spoke about it, was a draft, right? Recognizing that's the negotiation part of what goes with this project. If we have issues related to CEQA compliance, it would definitely go back to the planning commission, in my opinion, but it takes a full vote of the board. If it's modifications of the terms of the development agreement that don't affect environmental aspects, i.e. CEQA, it may not go back to the planning commission. So to be determined.
As a reminder, the planning commission did not sign off on the environmental document.
Right.
So just to complement what you said.
As a reminder, the planning commission makes a recommendation to the board of supervisors. They don't sign off on anything.
Well, that's true, but you said if we have not signed off on the environmental, then it would go back to us. So you got another return lobby? What?
No,
Okay.
board of supervisors has the
I
final
know.
determination
I think
if we have
that's crystal
compliance
clear.
with the environmental documents or not.
I mean,
So
but again, yeah, you may choose to sign off on that.
we don't sign off, we approve
Approve.
staff's recommendation.
This is semantics. But the point is that, just a reminder, it's not just the development agreement. You know, we did not put forth a recommendation approving the environmental document.
Agreed, I didn't say you did.
Okay, but you said that if we had not, that if that was not approved, then it would certainly
I
come
said
back
if
to the
the
planning commission.
Development agreement triggered something that required review of the development of the environmental documents, then it would probably go back to the planning commission.
Okay,
So it
okay,
depends on the terms within the development agreement.
Okay.
I don't know what those are.
all right,
When they're available for the public, we'll all know what they are.
all right.
So it sounds like hand, the developers, pardon me, hopefully kind of do an end run. Voted to disapprove the project. So if the developers doing this, they could do an end run around that and just deal directly with you.
Well, let me say that the ultimate authority is the Board of Supervisors. So that, there's no end run. I mean, they ultimately, it's a recommendation that we make to the Board of Supervisors. So I wouldn't agree with the characterization. That's all. No disrespect.
I would agree with John.
Yeah.
Right, and we've mentioned that several times. This is a continuing theme. But the development agreement team for the county consists of our CAO, it consists of the Director of Planning and Building, it consists of the Director of DOT. We requested the Auditor Controller to participate, and it also consists of County Council. So those are the 5 primary members. If those 5 primary members feel it's important to have another member of the staff involved, they will invite them to a specific meeting, but those are the 5 primary members that the county has defined as part of their development agreement team. And I would really hope the Auditor Controller would participate, but to date, he has not. So that is what it is. But those are the representatives we have for the county, and they're the ones doing the negotiation. And once those things are determined to be consistent with the needs of the county, and the developer has their part of it, then it can become public for discussion. So hopefully that helps.
To further clarify that, historically in the past, there was not a crew at the county. It was the Director of Planning.
Right, one person.
So that's an improvement. So.
Yeah, it's huge improvement.
Right.
As a newbie,
Yes.
can you please explain to me what CEDHSP project is?
Okay. Central.
I just need
I
to know
understand.
what
I understand.
about it. I don't need to know the big, long thing. I just
So-
want to know what.
It is a proposal by Parker Development Company to propose a new specific plan, which also requires a general plan amendment and a zoning change to take the property that's behind Rayleigh's, the 98-acre previous golf course, as well as property that was previously defined as a Pedregal, as well as property that runs along El Dorado's Boulevard north of where the golf course was. It's a strip that runs up here. Actually, it kind of ends behind the back of the fire station here. For a new specific plan that would involve the transfer of open space from the existing El Dorado Hills specific plan into the central El Dorado Hills specific plan in exchange for the opportunity to develop in part the old 98-acre golf course and the other provisions of the other development. So it's a very complex
I just needed to know what
project.
property we were talking. Lauren and
Had
I
a
were
lot of
wondering
review.
what the property was. I
Right,
saw
right.
it, we were looking.
Right, no, and that's fair. I appreciate that. Because every meeting we may have new people, and I don't know how much of this I have to repeat, so.
No, and I appreciate it. Just a summary of the property. Thank you. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Very good. So hopefully that helps clarify things on that. Any other questions while we're there? No hands raised, right? I can't see them, so. Okay, the second one, nothing new on Costco. Again, for public review. There are discussions going on, and it's primarily between EDH 52, which is really the project designation that Sakopoulos has defined, AKT, Angelo K. Sakopoulos has defined EDH 52 as 52 acres of property that's across the street from the Costco site. And they've proposed that for commercial, retail type uses. They're changing their proposal to include apartments and a small retail center, et cetera. So they're changing their overall proposal that they had discussed with various groups, including the chamber, including APAC, including.
We haven't heard that.
Oh, you haven't heard that?
We have
No,
not
no, I'm
heard
saying they're changing what they originally presented,
Yeah, but
which was 2
we
years
heard
ago.
them- we had them here last summer for a presentation from both parties, from AKT and from Costco, and the 52 is both sides of the, it's all 52 acres.
Okay,
So, but we have not heard from them since that meeting, despite us reaching out to them. So we know that there are
Well,
discussions.
right,
but we
what
don't know
they're-
the scope of
what they're doing right now is working with DOT
we've heard about
to
that.
try to
Yeah.
understand all the circulation and the patterns and where you can have entrances and exits and all those things. And once they get that finished, then I think they'll probably come forward with some formal modifications to the proposal, but we haven't seen those yet. So don't know the timeline on that one.
Other than they understand it's gonna be delayed, you know, because they're regrouping with the change in use.
Right, so the primary reason that the AKT project and Costco are tied together is they wanted to proceed with their CEQA document as a combined document. So look at all the environmental issues as one document, not two separate projects. So that's why they're tied together, so to speak, and as far as I know, that's the way they're continuing. But it has delayed Costco's ambition to get a formal project submitted and move forward, so. We'll see over time, hopefully, how that gets accomplished and then present that for public review. A lot of the word I hear is we're hiding things. We're not hiding things. We're just trying to follow the protocols and the procedures we have that when you do negotiations with private developers, that has to be done in a confidential manner. We can't make all that public. It's like the county wanting to purchase property. That's done as a closed session discussion. Because obviously, if you make it known that the county wants to purchase a certain plot, maybe other investors will get involved, right? So we're not out there trying to broadcast, and that's all consistent with the Brown Act and state legislation relative to land use and application. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time, because we have had sessions where we tried to discuss all of that with planning and building, but it is an educational process we all need to kind of go through, because there's an awful lot of complexity in these things, and there's even things called non-disclosure agreements, which are involved with some of these, that even get into more specifics about things that can't be said in a public setting. So just recognize those are there, and if we want to talk about those at some future meeting, we can spend a lot of time on that too, but there's a number of constraints is what I'm trying to say. I'd love to make more of this transparent. I can't. It's the bottom line. Until it's appropriate for public review. So any questions on Costco I can't answer. Okay, fair enough. Couple other things.
Let me say something, you know,
Yeah.
for anyone who has any doubts about transparency, this dialogue back and forth, that should reinforce, you know, whatever we can talk about, we'll talk about, just to make sure the record's clear. And I appreciate Supervisor Heidel, just, making sure the public understands, where we're at this point. So.
Thank you. And we have a team looking at this. It's not just me, right?
And as far as the Costco sort of proportion of this proposed project, that group has been very outgoing in terms of outreach. It was in Hawaii. It was years ago that we first started hearing about this. But we had, groups of local organizations that all went to the presentations, one of them in this room, where they talked about sort of what they were thinking and trying to get an idea of what the community sentiment was, or get an idea of where they needed to tailor their project to make it successful. So that group has been very generous with their time. They're very generous. They came here to APAC and talked with us, with a lot of people that are upset, but they were upfront telling you what they wanted to do. They want to hear what the response is. So you'll have a chance to do that again if it comes forward.
Yeah, very good. All right. Moving on. During the resurfacing of El Rose Boulevard in the northern section here, we had several complaints that we received through my office in terms of emails primarily, but also some phone calls as well as to DOT. And we responded to those with the best of the ability we had. The primary delay was in getting the striping finished, and I know that was causing a lot of concerns relative to public safety and not being able to see where the lanes were and where am I supposed to get over to turn, particularly on the very dark nights. And one of the things I personally noticed is that some of the drivers on those very nice dark nights had their headlights on high beam. And that makes it very difficult to see where you're trying to drive when they've got the high beam on. But I resisted going to high beam back because I didn't want to create something that, that might cause an accident because somebody's trying to see where the roadway is with their high beam. So it was a bad situation all the way around, the very dark nights, the wet pavement that had to dry out before we could restripe it. There was a certain number of conditions. And I'll just mention that Daryl Brown from DOT is here tonight, so he can speak on this in more detail. But the bottom line is I also wanted to comment that we did get some compliments towards the end of the project when we got the striping done, of how nice it was to have some turning lanes that went into Crown Village that weren't there before. Turning lanes going in, turning lanes going out. Likewise at Brittany Way, those that were there are restriped so we did make some improvements with this project that some people have recognized. And so we did get some compliments back because it's a tough business to try to meet expectations on roadway improvements because everybody has a different expectation, right? And we have a funding limitation, we have a staff limitation, all those things we have to work to. So that's the one thing I pulled out of this is lessons learned. We need to be more upfront with outreach in terms of setting expectations. I think John's going to talk a little bit about, when we talk about infrastructure, the subdivisions that are planned for work that's already started in November, so that those subdivision residents have a heads up, this is what's going to happen, because you have the same kind of thing. They shut down the roads because they have to do the grinding, they have to do a lot of work. So you are inconvenienced in those subdivisions because you have to go around things when that work is happening within your particular street. And I personally experienced that when they redid Lake Hills Estates. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, but when it's all said and done, it's a huge improvement in terms of the surface of the roadway and the ability to drive without going into potholes, et cetera. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But Daryl, did you want to add anything to this at this point?
Yeah, we had some weather problems.
Yes. And do you have a microphone?
You're about to.
Let's get one for you. Yeah. You're okay. Don't say anything you don't want to say.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those unfortunate things. We had the mosquito fire, so that pushed the work a little later in the year. And then we got some early rains, of which we love early rains, but it was right toward the end of that project. And so we had the striper, we lost about 6 or 8 days of striping availability, and we had to wait for weather to come back. And then it finally came back, and then we got the striping in, made the Crown folk. I promised them 2 years ago that we're going to get that gull wing in, and we did. So that made me really happy. We made sure they got that in. And anyway, so there was just in that respect, there was some problems just with the weather. And it's no fun. I don't know if you guys have ever paved or chip sealed in October, November. It's no fun. So, and then some of the tabbies got washed out. So yeah, just that darn winter work.
Ultimately, we would like to do those projects earlier in the fall season.
Yeah.
We got squeezed because of the fire situation of trying to provide emergency
The mosquito thing,
services and
that hurt us.
mosquito. Yeah, mosquito.
Yep.
Yeah.
Having
So
bad
anyway,
luck with fires the last couple of years.
yes, we're going to get to that. Are you finished, Daryl?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Steve?
Ask Daryl.
Yes.
I lived at the down part of it. Why is the surface of that here? Why is that so much different? The road is down close. Smooth, it's quiet. When I go on the road, I literally humble so loud.
I think it's it's a chip seal. It's kind of a rubberized chip seal with a micro seal on top. So while the other is a black top, it's like an asphalt. So there's more fines, on the asphalt. It's more expensive, of course, but
So it's cheaper.
yeah, you can get a lot. Yeah, we're finding it has a 15, 20-year life, and it lasts a lot longer. It has a good wear life, and it seals cracks, and you don't have to do a full grind and pave.
That was the difference on what was done with Saratoga. That was a complete grind out and replacement.
Those of us in El Dorado, we're the first, we pay a lot of taxes. Why do we get the cheaper road?
Not necessarily cheaper, it's just, I said it's cheaper, but it's also, you have to look at how much money we have to spend and how bad the road is. So and unfortunately, that's not my job, but I know what the guys do. The road crew and along with the director, then they present it to the board of supervisors. And there's competing funds for everything. And sometimes they have to make decisions on how a road gets done and how quickly it can get done. Because that was actually programmed to be an overlay over the whole process. And that might have been taken 5 or 7 years to get a full overlay to get $10 million to overlay it. So they wanted that area up there was a little better. So they were able to do this process first. And it's a little cheaper, but it also has a 15 to 20 year life.
I think
The
what you'll,
bottom line, and I've said this several times, it's the state gas tax that's supposed to fund the counties for road maintenance. We all know SB1, we paid more taxes for get our roads improved, right? But we haven't seen those funds come back in the quantities that they were originally identified. We got about half the money we expected to get from the first assessment. So the state reassessed it. They're collecting the money, but we're not getting as much as we thought at the county level, but yet we still have an obligation to maintain the roads. Board of Supervisors authorized, I think it's either $5 or $6 million in this particular budget cycle from general fund monies to add to the road fund to get more roads done across the whole county. But I got to tell you, that doesn't go very far. I was told if we had done the complete El Dorado Hills Boulevard consistent with what we have down at Saratoga Way, it would have been something like $3 million in excess additional costs. So how do you balance across all the county, the needs of roadways, and some of them are much, much worse than El Dorado's Boulevard was, to meet that balance. So there's a huge need. There's not adequate resources, revenues coming from the state to pay for it.
And
I don't know what to
you'll-
tell you how to fix that, but that's the reality.
Well, you'll also find. All right. Well, but if you see in adjoining areas, jurisdictions, they're faced with similar constraints and they're using similar techniques in these rehabilitation projects. And so it's nothing new. We're seeing more of that with the increased challenges that we have budgetary wise and so forth. So it just seems to be a sign of the times. So.
The other thing is when it comes to road maintenance, the state has two pools, city pool and county pool. We have two small cities relatively compared to El Dorado Hills size in our county. Placer County has something like 11 incorporated areas that all get money from the state to repair the roads in their cities and towns. So we don't get into this county at the city level. So that's a big part of it too. But the reality is what it is. Perhaps.
Can I offer one other question similar and nicely with DOT? I know we spoke about this months ago. The eastbound approach on Green Valley to Francisco had needed a small amount of asphalt to finish. Never got finished. I wonder if that's fell off someone's list of activities.
Are you familiar with what he's talking about? I remember the subject
In front of the
coming
new memory care center.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about at, Sophia Parkway and Shadowfax?
No,
No.
between Shadowfax and Francisco, just
Oh,
as
the
you
whole
press,
thing?
just right before Francisco. It's a very small piece.
So,
They didn't have enough asphalt when they did, I think, Francisco, and they were waiting to have a partial to finish. And I don't think they ever finished it.
that was
This year.
2017 is when the project was approved.
Right, but the work was within the past 12 months, I would think.
Shadowfax to Sophia Parkway, before you board tomorrow, I think, or it's on the consent calendar. But the developer is going, they promised to add it's, everyone calls it acceleration, deceleration. It's an adjacent lane to the travel lanes to turn into their project, and it goes from Shadowfax all the way to Sophia Parkway, would be a dedicated right or south.
Right.
But
I
that
think
one's
this
coming
piece
up
was when that
up at
new
the-
facility was built.
much
It was
further
when they were
east.
finishing the roads.
So we need to check,
sidewalk.
because
They
that may
didn't
be what
finish
they're
that
trying to
piece.
piggyback on top of. I don't remember
Right.
the specifics of that, but I'll inquire.
But hopefully, yeah, they just put it on someone's list.
Okay, moving right along. Yeah.
I'm gonna get into that in
Right.
structure.
We don't have a commitment on that yet because of funding limitations. So John's going to talk to it a little bit. Anyone else on that particular subject? Hands are raised, I'm assuming, unless you tell me. Okay. Moving on. We did have the meeting with Evelyn Schaefer down, the Director of Health and Human Services at the El Dorado Senior Center on the 30th of November. We were talking about methods of trying to get the senior lunch program reopened as soon as possible. And along with that goes the senior daycare center behind it. But the primary emphasis was the lunch program in El Dorado Hills. And we talked about various things as well related to the opening of the county homeless shelter and navigation center in Placerville with representatives from Volunteers of America. So all of those discussions went extremely well. I'll tell you on the senior lunch program, I reached out to our Veterans Association to see if they could provide us some help in terms of cooks that are certified to prepare meals, in terms of people willing to volunteer to help drive to the site, people willing to volunteer to serve the meals, and even that requires some determination that they have the right training to do that, so we may have to do some special training. But I got a very positive and receptive response from the Veterans Affairs Commission. So I've connected Health and Human Services with that organization. And then I got some other additional input today on some of the veterans resources that we might be able to tap into. So as John mentioned, with his outreach to, the church, he reached out to the church through his daughter Barbara to see if they could provide volunteers to help. And then through the Veterans Affairs Committee, I'm hoping we can get the right group of people to sign up for a temporary basis to get this thing restarted, because the limitation has been the county has not been able to hire qualified staff to fill the positions to reopen either the lunch program down here or the senior care facility, the senior daycare. So it's a staffing issue. We pay what I consider to be moderately competitive salaries. But if you look at the restaurant business, for instance, there's a whole lot of demand out there, and the positions aren't being filled. People are paying hiring bonuses to get people to come and be restaurant workers. So we're competing in a marketplace that doesn't seem to have adequate supply of people that want to go into that business. And we're having a very difficult time trying to bring people on board, because as you recall, when we went through COVID, there were some people who left. We didn't do any layoffs or anything else, but people left during COVID for various reasons, and they haven't come back. So that's one of the challenges there. It's the staffing thing as well. So anyway, there's a lot of effort going on to try to figure out a program that can be brought forward with a combination of volunteers and employees, and get the lunch program started, because we all recognize that the biggest part of that is the socialization that happens, plus the nutrition involved with getting a daily meal, hopefully 5 days a week. Because that becomes, some of our seniors, that's the main meal they would have, is they come down and have lunch served by people that prepare it professionally and has the right nutritional values, and they can socialize. And if they socialize, maybe they decide to get in the Pinnacle Club or the Bridge Club or whatever, which is the CSD side of the operation in our senior center. So we're hoping that we can continue to move forward with that. As I get more information, I'll let everybody know that it looks like we've got an opening date. We were pushing to try to get things by November 30th, but that's probably overambitious. It may, not November 30th, by December 30th, but we may have to bridge into January. So again, a continued effort to try to bring that back, the programs that were here. Any questions on that one? Where's our CHP? Where's our law enforcement? Another reason to form a city, huh? Maybe? The big, yeah, right. When the wreck happens, we'll go down and take care of it, right? Okay. We are still ongoing with our CAO recruitment effort. We did have 2 candidates that the Board of Supervisors interviewed on a special meeting on Friday. And then we previously had 4 panel reviews, and we have continued that discussion to a closed session at tomorrow's board meeting, because we were reaching out and getting additional information from references. We got the agreement of the 2 candidates that we could talk to some additional people on reference lists to get inputs. And that's always kind of a touchy subject, because sometimes when people apply for a job, they don't want their current employer to know they're applying for another job, right? So, but in this case, we were successful in getting that. So we are following up with that tomorrow. When we have the closed session, there'll be more discussion on that, and we'll see where it ends up. But I'm hopeful that we'll be able to agree that we can select one of the 2 candidates that have risen to the top, because if not, then we'll have to go out and recirculate, and it'll be much longer to try to recruit the right person. And we may end up with that. That is the end result, because again, staffing issues at the county, even at CAOs, I believe the number I heard was there are 8 counties currently looking for CAOs that are competing with El Dorado County. There's only 58 counties in the state, but there was a lot of counties that lost their CAOs from COVID. They just said, I'm done. I don't want to go through this. This is going to be miserable. I'm ready to retire. Good luck. And so some of those counties are still looking for CAOs after a couple of years, CAOs or CEOs, since there's 2 different types of models as to what the authority of your top administrator is. So as we get more information on that, we'll certainly fill you in. So that completes the list of things that I wanted to cover. So does anybody have another question that I might be able to answer at this point? All right, seeing none, I'm assuming, unless you tell me, that there's nobody.
No, we have to.
Okay. So we're going to move on to our leadership team progress reports, and we always start with public safety. And we do have the CHP, I believe, Andrew Brown online with us. Okay, well, you said Andrew, that's all I heard.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry. I keep trying
There's
to-
two
I
Andrews.
keep trying to promote you to panelists, won't let me.
We got a few of those too. So, okay, so Sheriff's Department Representative, Andrew, please go ahead and take the mic and share with us the latest report you have for us relative to crimes you guys support, or not don't support, you react to, respond to in El Dorado Hills.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me tonight. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just did for the last month stats. I pulled stats this morning from November 1st to December 1st, out of 730 reports taken in the county, El Dorado Hills, based on the zip code of EDH, accounted for 106 of those reports. And that's not calls for service. Calls for service are vastly larger. I think I almost crashed the system just looking for calls for service. So out of all those calls for service, we in El Dorado Hills have 106 reports. Of those, the biggest ones, we had 17 domestic violence related, and those aren't necessarily counting arrests per se. 12 burglary reports, 8 of those were grand theft, 7 were petty theft. So the difference, if anybody's unaware, any theft over $950 in value is classified as a grand theft and a felony, and anything below that would be classified as a petty theft. We had 6 fraud reports, 5 vandalism reports, 3 narcotics related reports, 2 arsons, and it was actually 2 different charges in one case. And then for the month of November, 1 catalytic converter theft. 45 reports were basically traffic, corner reports, welfare institution codes, so CPS type things, mental health evals, and then just general information cases. The biggest things that we are looking at up in detectives right now is package theft. It's that time of year. So we are forming our task force to basically do some undercover work following around delivery trucks and seeing kind of who's following those delivery trucks, if people are porch pirating, and kind of doing targeted patrols in areas that we know, have a lot of deliveries, especially over the holidays. We, over the past 2 months, we're looking heavily into catalytic converter thefts. We had a large uptick, and we did make 1 arrest that led to a lot of good information and basically disrupted a lot of what was going on in the county. Unfortunately, a lot of our catalytic converter thieves are coming out of the Sacramento area and beyond. El Dorado Hills, due to its geographical location, the county is kind of the first stop. They can come in and cut a catalytic converter within 20 seconds and be out the door before we can even get to them. In one case, deputies did get in a short pursuit with one of the suspects, and unfortunately, they evaded them. So those are things we're working on. A lot of highlights on getting with the business park owners, making sure that they are, getting proper security, surveillance, lighting, engineering their landscaping to make it a big deterrent for criminals. One of the things that we're seeing with one of the openings of the Sky River Casino down in North Stockton, Grant Line to White Rock is a easy pathway up into Red Hawk. So we have seen a little bit of an increase of crime in the business park on Latrobe. And it's very much the smash and grab, going into vehicles, rifling through them, taking high dollar value items and moving out. So, but overall, by and large, I think El Dorado Hills still holds the lowest crime rate in the county, which is good. I'm happy for that. So if anybody has any questions, that's pretty much all I have for y'all.
Yeah, I should have properly introduced you, Andrew. Your last name is Garola, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And you're a detective with the Sheriff's Department. I got Andrew Brown and Andrew Garola kind of cross-wired here, so.
Surprising that's happened in the past. No, yeah. So
Okay, I'm not the only one. All right, so.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay, so I really appreciate your reports. I guess the question I would have to start with is there an anticipation that during this holiday season, i.e. the month of December, we're going to see an increase in a lot of the doorstep robberies and those kinds of things? And is there anything we can do to be better prepared, short of the Ring doorbells or whatever that's out there?
Right. So there always is that expectation. Every year we see that uptick in reports of theft off of doorsteps or whatever. Aside from good lighting, kind of if you're ordering from Amazon or some of these companies, they kind of give you an idea of when that package is supposed to arrive. So being present on or about the time that packages arrive. I know that they don't consistently come to my house. Other options you can do is having it delivered to a PO box, or there are locations that some of these vendors use that are like Dropbox type things. So Amazon Locker, things like that. So instead of having it dropped at your doorstep, you go to a Safeway, you get your locker code and open it and pull it from there. A lot more secure, there's surveillance, and it's a lot harder. It's a big deterrent because most thieves are looking for the quick in and out and low detection. They're not going to walk into a Safeway and start breaking into lockers in front of people. At least we hope. That might happen in other counties. It doesn't happen in this county, or at least yet. I don't want to say it doesn't happen, but we're doing a really good job, I think, and I'm hoping you guys are seeing it, that when we do get crimes, even if they seem petty to other communities outside of our county, we try and do the most we can under the guidelines of the law to make sure that those people are at least inconvenienced by going to jail and run through the justice system. Just tonight, we had a guy that stole a bike out of Cameron Park a week ago. The victim managed to find the bike on Facebook, arranged a meeting with the guy that had the bicycle, and we went out and arrested the guy. And he was surprised that he was going to jail on a petty case. And we basically told him, listen, we're going to make an example out of this. You're going to jail. You might not stay for very long, but you're going to get put through the criminal justice system, and tell your friends that this is what we're doing when we catch you. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to make you pay for it a little bit at least.
That's good to hear. How about the mailbox theft? Are you anticipating increases in that too? Because that's the other thing I've heard typically during the holiday season.
Yeah, I haven't seen that as big of a problem in the El Dorado Hills area, just because a lot of the cluster mailboxes are well lit and they do have some security measures, but those do increase as well. We see increases in mailbox theft when tax returns are coming back in, first and the 15th. So we've had a few. I think I saw 2 calls come up in other parts of the county just today regarding mailbox theft. It's an ongoing issue. We might see a little increase though.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. Any other leadership
I got a
council
question.
questions? Go ahead.
Would you say, based on the thieves you've been able to apprehend, is a majority of the crimes in El Dorado Hills of theft coming from out of the county? Or can you make a statement like that? Or is that still unknown, is if it's significant or not?
I would say that a majority of it is, yes, coming out of the county. Some of our more high profile burglaries, the suspects were out of the Sacramento area. One of them has taken a plea deal. Another is still awaiting his trial. He actually got arrested on another case through Cal Fire. So he's going to be held to answer for that. And then he'll come back up to us to be held to answer for his part in the the Hills Church burglary. But a lot of it, by and large, what'll happen is we'll get a car that gets broken into, the credit cards are taken out, and we can follow the credit cards to Folsom and back down to Sacramento. And, it's really hard to identify these people because they're not local.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone in the audience have a question for Detective Garola? Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, Detective, there's a new law going into effect January 1 about catalytic converter sales. Apparently, it will require the people, the metal people fabricators who buy this stuff to log each one, where they bought it from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as a move to deter legitimate sales. Do you expect that law will have an effect on the actual stealing of catalytic converters?
It depends. Usually the people that are taking catalytic converters illegally in the first place are going to people that they know they can get stuff by. So your reputable recycling companies will follow the law and everybody else won't. I think a year or two ago, we had a case that was with Davis PD and a few other agencies all the way to the Bay Area. They had a house in Sacramento where people were taking all their catalytic converters to. They could get $600 for it. Those were getting put into a semi trailer and driven out to Las Vegas, and melted down there at like a giant chop shop, basically. And that money was eventually determined to be cartel related. So if we can, find the places where we're getting the catalytic converters taken to, we can take those down. That law will actually help us prosecute. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Anyone else in the audience? Anyone with their hand raised? I'm guessing not. All right, well, thank you again, Andrew. Really appreciate the report, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again next month.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Uh-huh. CHP, Andrew Brown, he's not on, is that correct? Okay. El Dorado Hills Fire then.
Yes, thank you. Again, Michael Anthel, deputy with El Dorado Hills Fire. A good time of year for us. We get a lot of chance to serve the community and kind of return, being that it's December and we have a lot of activities. Started on Saturday morning. The chief and I cooked pancakes with the big brothers and big sisters, the pancake breakfast, the snowball event. And it's a great event. It serves the disadvantaged youth across the county, and very rewarding for us to be a part of that, to give back. And it's great to see the kids out shopping with police officers and firefighters, and the district attorney's office was out there, good partnership. And just a great event. We enjoyed doing that. A lot of volunteers from our CERT program and our explorers and our firefighters. So just a great event for us. Good time. And then that evening we did move Santa in a fire engine for the lighting of the town center tree. And even though it was raining, still well attended, and just another positive event for the community. So that was great. And our highlight event is coming up starting tomorrow. I handed out the flyers, but
Santa Run.
that would be the Santa Run. Yep, very excited. Again, it is a reminder, if you could, and spread the word and spread it to your friends and family, but it is a food and a toy drive. That is the main intent of that event. Great for holiday cheer. You can see the stops that we're going to starting Tuesday night. And if you're unable to make it to any of those stops on Friday night, we'll be ending at District Church at their ice rink. And rumor is that Santa knows how to ice skate. So we've seen that happen a couple times. And it's just a great event, but a lot of good work going in by the entire department pulls together to put these events on. And it's just a real positive, great time for us. So that's my report for tonight. Chief, did you have anything else you want to add? Did I miss anything?
And I think the Santa Run's been going on for 25, 30, 40 years.
59.
59 years. So yeah, that's quite the community event, so to speak, from the standpoint of things that got started a long time ago and still happening. So
Yeah, and as Mike said, the Santa stops are special because over the course of those 59 years, Santa drove down every street in El Dorado Hills. Even when we were building our house and there were like 4 houses there, Santa's on our street. There's too many people now. So Santa's got to see everybody. It's easier to get people to
I can't
Santa.
believe you said that. There's too many people. There's
He
not
hasn't-
enough capacity to serve everyone.
He hasn't aged a bit.
I have, but, yeah, so the Santa stops are great because Santa's there, everybody's there to see him, collect all the donations while you're there. And as Chief mentioned, if you can't do it the night that it's near your neighborhood, down on over District Church on Friday and watch Santa skate.
Sounds like fun. All right.
This is voluntary time by our firefighters. These are not active duty firefighters who are being taken away from their station to do this. They are putting in extra time, extra effort, and it starts a month prior, getting things ready for this. There's a lot of planning involved. So the kudos to the men and women of our fire department who dedicate extra time and effort to this community-wide event.
Much appreciated. I'm glad you made that statement because, again, it's one of these volunteer things that our community has really been strong with. that keeps the community united, keeps us together, keeps us seeing the positive things that are happening in life. And so kudos to all the volunteers that volunteer in every capacity, whether it's helping the kids shop, whether it's going on the Santa runs. I've been on a couple of those myself, and very enjoyable to ride along and just see the residents come up with their appreciation and handing out the candy canes and all those things. So we'll look forward to another great year this year. So thank you for that, Mike. All right, any questions, Chief Lilly, on this, or yeah, Chief Mo as well is here with us. So any questions for the chiefs? Okay. Then I'm going to move into the other reports, and I'm going to suggest we start with Lauren, because I know Lauren has other commitments, probably like getting ready for school tomorrow. So if you would give us your youth report, and then we'll just come across the table this way.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a part of the El Dorado County Youth Commission, and for the past couple of years, we've really been focused on mental health and wellness, and we kind of reevaluated what we wanted to focus on, and we still do want to focus on mental health and wellness. And on top of that, also about building connections and kind of bridging divides. A big part of our commission was able to attend that Bridging Divides event, and a lot of them found it to be really impactful and something we also wanted to spread among all the different schools in the area as well. For those of you that don't know, the El Dorado County Youth Commission is made up of several high school students from Golden Sierra, El Dorado, Ponderosa, Oak Ridge, and CU Prep. And so we're able to kind of work with the Board of Supervisors and with other county leaders to kind of be able to share what we think it should be priorities for the youth, and we do our own projects as well. Normally around this time is when we start putting together our Wellness Week, which is typically a week where we try to provide resources and educate the community a little bit about mental health resources for youth. But we've decided to push that out until the spring to really focus on connections and a new peer advocate program we're going to be trying to put into each of the schools. I'm sure any of you guys that are parents know that the transition to from middle school to high school is really difficult. And Golden Sierra has had a program for about 13 years in which they give every single freshman a peer advocate or sort of mentor that's an upperclassman. And those upperclassmen receive significant training that has to do with being able to support mental health, also, mentorship and all sorts of things that they can be able to provide to that student. And so we're trying to get those programs implemented into all of our different high schools to be able to help support our students. Especially at Oak Ridge, we think it could provide a lot of value to our students, especially with a lot of issues we've been having on campus with campus culture and different divisions among students based on racial identity and sexual identity and all those types of things. So that's definitely something we're really focused on right now. We're trying to put together some sort of recruitment event to be able to implement those programs next year. Also on top of that, the El Dorado County Youth Commission is also really trying to focus on, like I said, that building connections piece. So we're trying to see what we can do to kind of put those two things together and really be able to get youth together to be able to support youth and be able to improve mental health and wellness.
Excellent. I will note that there was a death of a Oak Ridge High School student recently that suffered significant injuries from a skateboarding accident. And so the Wellness Center at Oak Ridge High School, sent out information and stuff about that. Those services are available to any student that's grieving as a result of those things. And we, for whatever reason, we seem to go through those losses more frequently than we'd like, but it does have a huge impact on a large part of the student body because Oak Ridge High School, even though it's big and got a lot of students, is still pretty a tightly connected community. So I'm very pleased our Office of Education has those wellness centers on, I believe, all of our high school campuses for the students to get services directly. And then there can be referrals beyond that and stuff. And we'll talk about that more in the future, but I did want to just note the loss of a recent student who passed away. We had another student that passed away from a cancer situation not too long before that. So again, it's kind of a double whammy. Those are things that happen in life, and you just try to move forward and provide the support necessary for people to recover and get back to as much as a normal state as they can. So thank you, Lauren, for your report, and don't feel obligated to stay around if you got to go home and do things. So, all right, fine. Appreciate that. So over to John.
All right, El Dorado Hills Boulevard, Mr. White. Et al. Yes. The limits of that are from Serrano to Harvard. The design is done. The timing, it can't be nailed down at this point because they're still in the process of securing funding. So it's going to be the basic same process. I think there's lessons learned from the county as well as the public in respect to what the expectations are, Supervisor Heidel was talking about. So I think the second phase will probably go a lot more smoother for everyone. So stay tuned for that. As we get updates, we'll let you know. So now there's also some road repair, some surface treatments at some of the adjoining subdivisions as well. We've seen some of that work already on Shadowfax Lane, as well as Mormon Island. A third road, St. Andrews Drive, they're still looking at that and stuff. So the designs are, they're still in process for, St. Andrews, so they still got some decisions to make and so forth. So that work is ongoing and obviously will carry into the next year. So just a basic overview of that. I don't know if there's any questions or comments.
Well, I'll just comment that on my webpage, Cindy has put all this information out there, so we have a summary that DOT provided to us, because there's also improvements on Green Valley Road that are planned. We're not going to talk about all of these, but I think it's important for people who are looking for what is the county doing with our property tax dollars and other dollars. It really isn't property tax dollars. It should be going for road maintenance. It should be state gas tax monies that go for road maintenance, although we are taking money out of general fund to supplement what the state hasn't been able to provide us. But as we go through these, we'll try to identify some additional projects, let you know when it's coming up. Because again, I think getting the message out that there are going to be delays, that there are going to be warning signs, that there will be a construction period that's identified. Similar to what we do with Bass Lake. I mean, and sometimes it's confusing for people because they don't know necessarily the detour routing. But as much as we can, we'll try to be more proactive in providing information to the public before those things start up, because I think that's a big help. John's personally experienced some of those things.
Yeah. Well, we were, I should put that on, sorry, man. We were fortunate in the Bass Lake area that, we knew this was coming for many years. We worked with DOT to provide information in terms of updates to the residents via social media, our Bass Lake Action Committee website. And again, on APAC, we shared information as well. So when that information is known, it makes it a little more tolerable for the disruptions. Bass Lake Road was closed from April to June a couple of years ago, and the curve was realigned. The off-ramp at Bass Lake Road, right there when Country Club was realigned, that was a multi-month project. Can't count the months. But again, we were all trying to share that information. And we talked to Director Martinez quite frequently. The list that John's referring to as of March 2022, we also have that on the APAC website. I'm looking at it right here. So it is disruptive, and it is subject to when contractors can do the work and when weather sort of cooperates, and also when that funding materializes. So a lot of things, but in our community with as many people that we have here, it's a little different environment than perhaps other elements of the county where it's more rural. There's more people, there's more traffic. So as we share information, it's easier to sort of navigate around the disruptions. And, we welcome the improvements in the maintenance.
I will just comment, Silver Springs Parkway, I think is a huge improvement for people who are trying to take that route.
It is a much better improvement. I have not been over to my kids' college house. I haven't seen what it's like in the middle school. But we're talking with the developers over there about a traffic light that's supposed to go in on Green Valley as part of that. But Silver Springs, the question we had on that, I think Planning Commission had a question when you looked at the tentative map, time extension for Silver Springs was, who's maintaining the weeds in the median? It's a brand new road. The weeds in the median are taller than a car. And that's in the center median, that's along the sides. I know I talked to Commissioner Nevis about that as well. Never really got an answer on that. I think there's some speculation there might be a zone of benefit there that might take care of that. However, there aren't many of those homes sold yet. So there's probably not an accumulation of funds that would go ahead and do it. However, when we did mention that at a planning commission hearing, I will say, like, within a week, somebody went out and took care of the weeds at the intersection of Silver Springs and Bass Lake Road, because you couldn't see over it to see the oncoming traffic that you have to wait your turn to go through. So, that is a much better road, and it's amazing when a road goes in what a difference it can make in terms of you know, safety for circulation for pedestrians, you know, it's a good thing.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
One last thing at this Thursday at the Planning Commission. I appreciate Cindy putting out and John as well at APAC. We're going to have a water workshop. And I've been working on this for about a year with planning staff and to coordinate with EID and the water agency. And they're going to come in and do a PowerPoint presentation and be open to questions and comments to get a, give us a baseline, because what do we always hear with new projects? We always hear complaints about traffic and what? Where are we going to get the water, right? So I think, there's a lot of folks that know this stuff. It's an incredibly complex issue. And so, they're going to be coming and making some presentations, and we're going to be asking questions and opportunities for the public to ask some questions and so forth. So I think it's going to be instructive, I think, for myself and a lot of folks. And so I'm looking forward to it. So I hope you can participate. If you can't show up at the hearing, then maybe participate in Zoom. But we also want this to be a resource that we can look back on when we get these questions in the future. Hey, go to this hearing and you'll get a lot of your answers and information at this hearing. So really looking forward to that. And I'll just tell to whoever DOT is listening in, I'm hoping to do a transportation one in the future, but stay tuned. So,
okay.
So thank you for that. So 8:30. We've got one item. We got a river permit first. So I would say if you start tuning in about 9 o'clock, we'll, probably be a couple hours too between questions and the presentations and so forth. So
I'll just note that if you go to the county website and go to Legistar, associated with the planning commission meeting, the presentations are posted there. So I've already had a chance to preview them, but if you're really interested in looking at the complexity, the details provided, it's good to start by getting, a preview before you start getting deluged with all the information, because there is a ton of stuff in those two presentations, particularly the one from the water agency.
yes, I'm still working my way through that.
It takes a while to really understand all the things going on within El Dorado County relative to water. And its water supply is for the most part. And then you could very easily, yeah. But I would advise anybody who really has an interest in it to go and look at those presentations before the meeting, because it'll be much better prepared to ask your questions that you may want to get a specific answer to.
Noting that.
It's like boiling the ocean when you start reading all that stuff. You got to kind of focus on what is it that's important to you.
If you have a hard time finding that on Legistar, because it can be difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
If you go to the APAC website under documents and go to the planning commission section, all the planning commission documents, the agenda, everything's linked there. You grab that there as well.
Did we
It
put
is
the
a lot
link up?
to
We went to the social media stuff. Did we give them a link to the planning commission Legistar files?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I asked Cindy
So
to
if you
do
got the
that.
Facebook notice, or if you got the next door information from District 1, to be a link that you can go right to that website and pull up those documents. Otherwise, it is kind of tough to navigate. Somebody doesn't give you a link that makes it easy, right? So,
All right, thank you.
you bet. Thank you. Glenn, what's happening with economic development? I'm not seeing much lately.
Yeah, me neither. Well, let me take my Costco update off. Let me take my DH52 off. Some people have noticed that Sophia Parkway and Green Valley, some fencing has gone up, some dirt being moved. That's the new self-storage, I guess.
Yep.
Will be going in there.
Yep.
And I've seen on Nextdoor everybody commenting on how it should be something else, like a grocery store or something like that. But just so you know, self-storages are a great investment. You know people in that industry, so I'm sure other people building it know what they're doing.
But aesthetically, it doesn't offer the services that the broader community might want. So
Right.
that's what it is, but yeah.
It's not a beautiful, nice place for people to gather. And
Right. The property owners get to determine how they're going to develop their property, right? That's a right.
That's kind of the bottom line. But there's some fun stuff going on at economic development at the county relating to incubator businesses. I know some. John probably can help fill in those a little bit more because he's probably been in more meetings. But related to that, an El Dorado Hills resident, Jonathan Wittenberg, was on the latest episode of Shark Tank. If anybody saw, he has a fire suppression device that you can hook up to your pool pump and hook it up. They've got some like that, but she's got one and thousands of gallons that they can pull out of your pool to wet your house. And it didn't look like it was going anywhere. She didn't have sales. Of those of you who watch that kind of show, up getting a deal with two of the sharks. Now,
So she's got investors
the
to
deals
grow
aren't
the business.
final,
Yep.
and they do meet after. And so we're gonna try to follow up, one, to see if she ultimately has come to an agreement with them, and to see if our people from the county and maybe some other departments could maybe help her and work with her. And the county, on a different topic, but it's related to it, has decided to invest in some incubator businesses for a wet lab. Anybody who's, a lot of people heard about an incubator business. DoorDash came out of that. A lot of tech companies came out of those ideas where people got in some venture capital and people helped them and gave them some money to develop their business. But it's a really broad community, let's say, where you may have some people come in very early where it's just a concept. They may throw a little money at an idea and support somebody, and maybe they spread that money around. Or people who come later to help a project that's already been proven. Maybe they have a device or they have a concept. And there's different lanes within the incubator type of community. And then also what they focus on. We met with what Folsom is doing, and Folsom, they develop a separate development corporation out of the chamber. They bought a elementary school, and they're offering low rent space to people who want to use it, kind of work together with each other, share ideas, have a place to go rather than just working out of their home. We know a lot of people do that in El Dorado Hills because that's a lot of the successful people who live here and trying to tap into that. So the county's decided to work, is it $50,000
Yes.
awards that they will be
And that's
giving?
coming out of TOT. It comes out of our transient occupancy tax. I got an email questioning why we don't relabel that, because the transients that stay in these places and stuff are not necessarily consistent with homeless or whatever. And I have to remind everybody, that's a state term. It's part of the taxation and revenue code. We can't change the terms arbitrarily.
Well, I know other communities call them tourism and other line items that they also add. Just took this off for you today on a bill my wife had.
There you go.
So yes, other communities have lots of add-on charges that we have a problem with. But this is money that we do have that is going to support some business startups, and I'm not sure of the details of how they're going to select them. I do know that they're looking for space. I do know that they're thinking about people who are looking for what's known as a wet lab. Now, a wet lab is different from tech, and it has to do with life sciences. So it can involve maybe some testing equipment that people need access to, some expertise that people need access to. We are an ag county, so one of the things I advocated for was to support the agriculture of the county, and so that's where this wet lab concept for an incubator is coming from. So it's a lot of opportunity. It's kind of fun. We have a person here who's now been on national TV who might need some help and might want to join this and might allow us to get a little attention at the same time.
Right. There's an organization called the Growth Factory, if you've not heard that term, that's very much promoting these kinds of incubator programs throughout the entire Sacramento region. I've attended some of those sessions. Glenn has. We've had conversations with them, and that's really the group we're trying to work with to try to put this in place so that we have a local success-oriented, or I guess like success-demonstrated organization supporting these things, that we're not just doing it blindly. And the Growth Factory hopefully will be a big partner in that
And
as
they're
this
coordinating
evolves.
different communities, like Folsom has
Yes.
theirs, Davis has a wet lab, and so they're at least a connecting point and a source of a lot of additional funding as well, I guess.
Yeah, but when you hear that tune, don't think of Wuhan or anything else. It's not one of those types of labs. It's really a lab that promotes a lot of good business structure locally and jobs.
But it's life science based.
Life science
They probably
based.
need some better terms.
Yeah, I don't necessarily like the term because it doesn't really describe what it is, but that's the term that's been framed to go with it. So we'll try to provide you more information as we see those evolve, right?
Right, but it is kind of fun, and it's something that econ development can work on, and I see good businesses come out of it, youth commissions with young people, trying to keep them in the community after they either graduate high school or they leave and go to college and come back, so that they'll have opportunities here.
Along those lines, I will just mention quickly, even though it's not in my district, the Tractor Supply store. If any of you that travel down Latrobe Road have probably seen that under construction. I haven't heard of a opening day yet. We haven't been notified, but That is a new business that's coming to our El Dorado Hills community. It's in District 2 because it's part of the business park. But if you're familiar with the Tractor Supply organization and the types of goods and services they provide, I think it does add another resource to our community that we didn't have before, similar to what Amy Hardware brought to El Dorado Hills, because we didn't have a really good hardware store. And now, in my experience, we do have a really good hardware store. Plus, they have the outdoor furniture part of it, outdoor living, which is huge. So I think any of you who haven't taken the opportunity to go visit the Amy Hardware facility, which is in my district, it's in Town Center, I would encourage you to do that because we need to bring our business locally and support them to make sure that they stay financially solvent and actually can grow the business. They've got a great reputation. It's Ace Hardware is what's tied to it. So anything you can go online and order from Ace, they should be able to deliver it to Amy if you want to pick it up there as opposed to home delivery. So please, support their business here because I think that's huge to try to keep that business alive and flourishing. So I'll leave it at that. Any questions or comments relative to economic development? Tim?
The committee has been working along with the Ag Commission, another committee, and the Ag Commissioner, and made a number of meetings with the Board of Supervisors. I haven't been with the latest, so I know there was an update to move forward with 6 or 8.
A pilot program
program
that has a maximum of 6. And an ordinance that controls how those are done. So yeah, there's a lot of information on what the board has adopted as part of the Go Forward pilot program.
Because this month has a deadline that if they don't decide to do something, there will be a ban. Personally, and I've spoken about it, it's the right to farm product. It's a legal product federally and locally. It does have a problem that the product looks a lot like cannabis.
Well, it is cannabis. It's just not the high THC marijuana form of cannabis.
So has none of those effects of marijuana, but it's legal. It's federally legal. We haven't had a wine. Wine is a big product in our county. It's also a relatively young product. Before that, it was what, peaches?
No, it was pears.
Pears. There was a blight.
Apples.
Yeah.
Right, and there was blight. And our apples are not doing very well. So right now, I don't think it's necessarily a good time to discourage development of potential crops, number one. Number two, the people that are kind of negative towards hemp growers are assuming that hemp growers are devious criminals and not going to be, upstanding citizens who are going to do the right thing. So it's kind of a good versus evil. It's kind of what it boiled down to. Are these people going to honor their commitments and keep their product safe and grow it the way it's supposed to grow? And it does grow in many other counties.
So if you're really interested, Tim, we can forward you the link that gives you that draft ordinance. It'll be coming back to the board. I don't think it's on Legistar yet because it's next week's.
No, not for
meeting.
next week, for the board, no.
Okay.
Agenda, no.
But there is information from the previous board meeting that gave you the draft ordinance stuff and the way it was compiled based upon inputs from the Ag Commission and CDAC.
Was it finally approved?
Yes.
It was approved.
Well, it was tentatively improved because it had to come back. There was some finalization that had to be done. My understanding was supposed to come back before the end of the year.
Right, I think there was some language.
Right. So it's minor stuff, but hopefully that does provide another agricultural product because the Ag Commission very much emphasized the fact that it is difficult to find new ag products for businesses that may be suffering. I know of wineries, for instance, in Napa Valley are having to shut down because of a blight that's happening to the wine grapes. If we have that happen to our wine grapes, what's our next product, right? Because based upon what happened with pears, Bartlett pears mostly, we know that some of these products can be affected by different types of diseases and stuff, and you have to change the crop to maintain that agricultural interest. And it appears that cannabis itself is a very hardy crop, grows like a weed. And so it's much easier to know that you're going to have sustainability with that kind of a product. It's not as susceptible to the disease and other things. So from that perspective, we want to make sure it's a right to farm opportunity for ag to continue to expand, change their products, whatever's necessary to maintain our agricultural base and let it grow. So.
And it has helped in like Kentucky, big state for it. They don't grow very much tobacco anymore, but they do grow hemp.
Yeah, and Oregon's gotten very heavy into it too. So, yeah, to be continued, the discussion, but any other questions from anyone at this point? Thank you, Glenn. On to APAC.
No, I'm slow down. In fact, don't forget, we have phone numbers that we'll do this offline. So our meeting is next week. We're doing it virtually because our agenda is super light. The primary focus of our meeting will be Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Will be the election of our officers for 2023. So that's the primary focus. We did want to get people out just to do that because hopefully it will be brief. But we will be also talking about the proposed meeting schedule for next year. As we talked about, permit applications are down. Projects are kind of in limbo because developers getting funding from either bond sales or your financing. Interest rates are high, in case nobody has caught on to that. So we're not hearing a lot of feedback from developers, even with projects that are in process, in terms of they're not responding saying, oh yeah, we have a timeline, or it's like, oh, we don't know right now. So we'll talk about our meeting schedule. We're going to build in a couple opportunities to maybe skip a month or two based on need. And we kind of pre-identify those months in advance. We do want to talk a little bit about the Planning Commission's water planning workshop, just to see if there's some high-level takeaways we can share. And then any sort of project statuses that have an update that we can share, we'll provide that as well. And we try to hold off. We do our agenda the Wednesday before our Wednesday meeting. We try to give a week. And we want to wait till the last minute in case something comes up, and we want people to know about it so we can share it. We do have, in next year, we have an opportunity for the Transportation Department. We talked to Raphael about a couple of planned meetings during the year, just sort of scheduling and say, hey, in February, Transportation year, we'll talk about something about El Dorado Hills. And then probably another one later in the year. It might be in the late summer or early fall. So we'd love to actually see if you'd be interested in during their presentation the second time for a wider audience. The Planning Commission's workshop will be videotaped or video recorded. Our meetings are video recorded, but we can get that one-on-one here. I think in the Planning Commission, sort of in terms of it being a hearing and a workshop, you don't do a lot of back and forth response with public. It's more between the commissioners and the presenters. So might have an opportunity to do that here as well. So we'll be here, we'll be virtual in December, get our officers elected. And then in January, we'll do an in-person. February, we'll have DOT. March might be our first month that we skip. So that's where we're at. The agenda will come out on Wednesday. The link to the Zoom meeting will be on that as well. And anybody that wants to participate, listen. We encourage everyone to at least pay attention. And you know, the way this works is that it's the community feedback that's the biggest part of it. So we get community to participate, it makes for a better project, regardless if you're for a project or against a project. We want the best outcome. So, and hopefully there are no questions.
Are there any questions? I have one comment. I was contacted by Aiden Berry, who is Generations and also Dixon Ranch, and I will be meeting with him this Thursday. So it seems like they're picking up their interest in trying to move forward with their projects.
Yeah, this data shows an incomplete application right now.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, but we reached out to Aiden when the project was announced. I went there last March. So, and he said that he's willing to attempt. Oh, just brief. So in terms of the development, when you talk about the fencing going up over there in Shadow Heights and Green Valley, that project applicant, you know, that project's approved. They are also working on an application for a neighborhood retail center right there in the corner at the traffic light Sophia Parkway, which includes 2 buildings with drive-throughs, quick quack car wash, and auto detail. No, I think the small went away. It's an auto detailing. So we submitted our questions to the TAC meeting as that moves forward. And again, there's another applicant that was very engaged with us in terms of the self-storage project. I think we talked to him 3 or 4 times at an APAC meeting. So they're very engaged and want to hear, what the public concerns or questions are. So we hope to have them coming as their project moves forward too. Nothing.
I reached out to the owners and asked them if they had been contacted by the Purple Place owners, and the answer was yes, and they've had some discussions, which to me means it's probably not going anywhere, but.
That is a very compact project, the way they have it proposed right now. Obviously, we had concerns about the drive-through elements and the circulation and the parking.
You think Saratoga is compact? This is another almost repeat.
It's double, yeah, right, because they are committed to do drive-throughs. One of them is identified as a coffee service, so we don't know if it's a local or a national.
Dutch Boys. Dutch Brothers, right?
That's
Bros.
Okay, come on.
Well, if
You
you
gotta
can wait,
speak the lingo here.
if you can wait in Cameron Park.
I don't
there's-
frequent it because there isn't one around here.
Yeah,
Gotta go out to Roseville.
Folsom, one Placerville's opening. There's one proposed.
You're
in
encouraging
Cameron.
me to do business in Placerville or Folsom?
Well,
We're the
Placerville-
county, kumbaya, you know, it's tax
Folsom isn't.
dollars.
Folsom isn't.
Yeah, so, Dutch Bros in Cameron Park is proposed where this is. Oh, it's coming to your commission. So that's it.
In the community near you. All right. Thank you, John, for the report. Let's go to Cindy.
Okay, continuing in El Dorado Hills Town Center is the Elf on the Boulevard scavenger hunt. I was shopping during Small Business Saturday and saw a bunch of little kids. They have, they get little, like passports, and they go to the different businesses and find the elves, and they get their little stamps. So it's a really neat program. Gets the kids excited to go to visit all the shops, and then the parents shop. So that's until December 24th. And there's photos with Santa at the El Dorado Hills Welcome Center. They have it daily, but you will need to check the calendar for the hours depending on the day, and we'll have that listed on the supervisor's webpage. Now through the 15th, the El Dorado Hills CSD is accepting letters to Santa. They can either be mailed to the CSD or deposited. They have a little holiday mailbox at the CSD pavilion there for the kids to drop off their letters for Santa. The carriage rides at Town Center just started, and they will be continuing through the 17th on Fridays from 6 to 9 and Saturdays from 5 to 9 in Town Center. So they'll have the horse-drawn carriages out there. Chief Lilly already talked about the Santa Run that's starting tomorrow. And on December 22nd at the El Dorado Hills Town Center, the Stephen Young Amphitheater area, they're going to have a menorah lighting, and that's from 8:30 or 6:30 to 8. And finally, after the holidays are all over, on January 7th, there's going to be the Christmas tree recycling. It's in a new area this year. It's going to be from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And it's the El Dorado Hills Community Park North. It's closest to the dog park over in Harvard Way. So it's a different area for this year, but they're going to be recycling your trees for you. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Chief, any go backs? Kathy?
I'll go big and young. For those of you who have not seen, the El Dorado Community Health Center has a brand new building. I don't know if you've all heard or seen about it. That's a yes. Had the tour of it. It's behavioral health, regular health, dental with pediatric dental, a lab, and a pharmacy, which is huge. So it's packed out there.
I'll mention that's not a county-operated facility, even though it has kind of the title of it, but it's a separate enterprise.
Yeah, it's a rural health clinic.
Right.
So it'll accept Medi-Cal, and there are some folks who can that are meetings connected health services. It is on Missouri Flat Road, right in front of, right before you get to Walmart.
I think it's what, the Walgreens? It's
Yeah, it's
right
on the
there.
west side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's on
right
the-
between the freeway and Walgreens.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is worth going inside. Exactly. And how great having health services, same ones that will access.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are medical, those types of supports, and to have medical is really quickly, El Dorado County has been looking at these top health issues in the county, just last month, they had announced after engaging with over 1,500 people and looking at what the top 3 health issues are. They are mental health and substance use, child health, and obesity. They'll be working forward or putting together a plan on how we can start addressing those issues as a county as a whole, and have some strategies that we can all work together in addressing. They've been around for a while, so it'd be great to start working on some of them. El Dorado County, kind of dovetailing on what Lauren said about behavioral health and the wellness centers. El Dorado County Office of Education has this summer received $6 million in behavioral health funding. These are 2 grants that they were going to be doing, expanding health centers or wellness centers on their sites. They have hired Matt Smith, who is the former principal and superintendent of community schools, who actually has operated a wellness center. Matt's taking on that project. He's digging in, rolling up his sleeves, and we expect within the next year that we'll start seeing some movement on how to address behavioral health needs of our students. So that's pretty exciting, and it is in cooperation with Behavioral Health Department of Behavioral Health County Office of Education and State Health for that funding. How I need to talk about community hubs if you have folks that are struggling. Community hubs, I mentioned earlier, are library. The phone number for hubs in our county is 24827. This is not an emergency line, but if you want to get connected or like the woman want to get connected to services, you can call that number and we can make sure it's also available for text. And I think the biggest issue, and I won't go into the details of it, one of the biggest issues that we're talking about is necessity of food, and I think it's great to run and incorporates food. If you haven't seen this, and I'll make sure you have this, there are a lot of folks who are still struggling with food, or they don't have jobs, or got thrown into a new units. But food insecurity is a big issue a lot of times. We're doing our best to address it. I think the numbers will have better than this. But in our county, the drive-through distributions was one of the issues that are in all the county. The first 9 months of the year, they saw it was equally split between seniors and children. Their hunger is not partly unpopular. So these drive-through distributions set up for about 2 hours. In addition, from First Five's perspective, this calendar comes out, so we'll make on the website based on whatever funds we have to offset. That's it. And then guys, tell me what you want to know more about.
Is food distribution, is that associated with the Dorado Food Bank?
There are actually 2 food banks in our community. One is the El Dorado Food Bank, who has a USDA commodities contract. The second is Feeding America. That's Placer Food Bank, but Placer Food Bank also operates in El Dorado County. So the drive-through distributions are with Placer Food Bank, and then the food pantries are from the El Dorado Food Bank. And together they serve the community on the western slope, and then there are separate food banks that operate up in top of it.
And there's faith-based food supplies too, that are distributed throughout, the food plaza is primarily distributed throughout the county, so.
And actually, I should add, the El Dorado Food Bank has actually for our libraries. So our libraries now have availability of snacks and other food drinks. A lot of teens we see are kids that are coming in that maybe don't have much. So we've been actually starting, actually Georgetown has a larger one, of course, from the mosquito fire. We've actually started putting in food pantries in our libraries in order to make sure that the food insecure have access to food if it's clean. There are some food access here in El Dorado Hills. It's on demand, and as the demand grows, we replenish. So we can walk into a library and find diapers from there.
Excellent. Any questions for Kathy? Yes, Ron.
Your first 5 programs, see a decrease in the funding with tobacco sales.
Excellent. Got my projections last week. Came back from vacation and got my projections. So the flavors ban just passed, and that is a limitation on flavored tobacco products. First 5 does receive their funding. We are 50% funded. support families. And then there's an enhancement that we expect to probably. Yes, our projections are showing that we'll have a. They had told us at first that the 20% happen over 4 years. The first projections that we got showed it happening next year. We get just about $1 million a year to invest in the community, and that number drops to $850,000. Kind of toggle around, but I think it'll probably. We're looking to continue to partner with our library friends, county government, and county office. Do I might add in community hubs, the county government is actually contributing $175,000. This is cradle to grave. And that's made available by county government dollars, and the county office of education actually contributes $150,000 so that we can expand.
So does the funding that the county provides not of the general fund, or how does that funding should?
As I recall, that money comes out of the general fund. There's also MHSA, Mental Health Services Act funding that supports some of the activities in the hubs. That's been cut off now? Okay, that ended then. Okay, that was a couple years ago when I was on the Behavioral Health Commission with Steve. And so if that's ended, it's ended. But so there's various sources of funding that come up from time to time, but I believe it was general fund money. It has to either be two sources, TOT, which is really general fund, or general fund, specifically. So I think it was general fund money that was allocated as part of the budget review in terms of we have some excess revenues that we didn't anticipate. How do we spend them on one-time events to try to provide additional road maintenance funds, to provide additional services where there's gaps, that sort of thing, as long as we can. And recognizing when you hear presentations like Janelle's, if the number of recordings of real estate transactions drops, and I've not seen an update from our assessor yet, but that's what I'd be looking for. Seems like they should be giving us a heads up that it looks like our property tax revenues may actually flatten out substantially. I hope they don't get back to where they were in 2008, 2009, because we actually saw negative impacts associated with property tax revenues. Hope we don't have to repeat that, but that's who we look to first of all as the assessor, and recognizing we have a newly elected assessor that starts in January. Hopefully that information will be forthcoming pretty quickly, because that's what we all have to adjust to. But yeah.
Idea of proportion, we invest $730,000.
Right.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with a program that trying to get tobacco sales, program that was designed to increase tobacco sales.
We've always been aware of this.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of collaboration. And if it's good for the community, if you can take, this is the way I look at it. We're taking existing public buildings, we're reimagining them to be a broader resource for the community. And we are finding collaborative dollars both from education and county government, and leveraging existing county government staff to make this happen. It's a win. You're maximizing and being more efficient with your public dollars in order to make that happen. And that's what we as First Five think, is that we're leading collective impact. We're trying to make change on our existing systems rather than trying to come in with grant monies and patch them together. We want a more efficient public system that reaches the folks in the community rather than having to drive to Blue Road for everything.
I'll just make one add on. The general number for services referrals is 211 at the county. So if you know of anyone who's looking for, I need services, I've got a problem, where do I start? 211 is the general number that you can call. And we're trying to get an update from the Board of Supervisors perspective on how effective that system has been, because we get very little or no feedback. And if people aren't calling it, why are we paying for a service? Because it's done external to the county. So we're really looking for what is the value add of that service. And so we're trying to get some more data to understand, do we need to change the emphasis on the information distributed? Is it working well and we just don't know about it? But that's one of the follow-ups we need to have, because that was an initiative we put in place, is similar to what other counties have done. But if you have any personal experiences with trying to dial 211 and getting less than a satisfactory answer, I would appreciate hearing about it, because that's the kind of input I need to understand how to restructure or maybe even consider, dropping that service if it really isn't effective for our population. So More to come on that, but yeah, thank you, Kathy, for your report. On to Richard.
Okay, so we don't have an all-nighter here, real brief. Our meeting was November 15th. On November 15th, the board of supervisors approved oral grant loan as our fifth city member will join us next Monday. We have one meeting on the second Monday of the month. Our most recent meeting, we continued to basically review gathering of data on several of the major items suggested by the board of supervisors relative to potentially consolidating elected offices, considering staggering terms of elected offices. We did hear in person from the Recorder-Clerk, and the treasurer as to these issues, and both recommend that the current terms and fixed election dates remain. Of course, that would affect them, and not a surprising recommendation, even though it may be a good recommendation, but I think it's relative to their own position in office. We've heard no support relative to a proposal to reduce the number of supervisors to 7, which hasn't been said, but that would mean increasing the number of districts to 7, which might be a bigger issue than the number of supervisors. And as to the question of potential affecting the term limits of these future supervisors, we're inviting past and current supervisors to give us some data as to know the impact of their effectiveness relative period of time that they're in office, early time versus a later time, etc. So we're still gathering information. The other matters have been raised in public comment and were not on the agenda for discussion. May have to do with potentially considering something about the number of at-will positions. Are there too limited? What's the pros and the cons? And also in the public comment time was a question about maybe reviewing the part in the charter where the basically the sheriff salary, sheriff position salary is established in a code section of the charter. That's not on our agenda, so it was not discussed, and it may get posed for agenda. So, but our next meeting is next Monday.
Good.
And we are strongly soliciting any public comment whatsoever on any matter that people would like to see potentially addressed.
I'm going to ask Cindy to set up a meeting with the three of us, because I've gotten a lot of inputs of things that we can do with the charter from different people. I've had some thought time to think about some of the stuff I've seen and just kick it around whether it's viable or not, recognizing that some of these things are a little bit probably out of the current boundaries of what the charter is written to, but I think it's important to consider them. So I'll save that until we have the discussion, but I'll ask Cindy to just set up a meeting for us. And I guess if any of the leadership team wants to participate in that, I would encourage them to also participate in the discussion of the charter, because I think this is something we can do.
I think maybe the committee has thought this way, but if it's not in the charter, it can't get it.
I understand. But there's certain things that may strike people as, why are you talking about that in the charter? And I have a good explanation for some of the subject matter I'd like to discuss with you. So.
Quite frankly, it's been very limited. We've had members of the taxpayers association have been live person and also via Zoom, which is good. We've had several of our elected officers come in when they found out that there were questions related to their terms of office and how their office would function. But I would say general public, not necessarily on an agenda, but just to find out what's going on, maybe want to have an issue, has been very, very slight, despite the fact that a lot of the members have made outreach to a group like Rotary or the typical groups that we want to reach out to.
Right.
I'm disappointed that I haven't heard back. It's like, our local chamber of commerce, volunteer, go visit, make a presentation on the charter review. Haven't heard a thing. Like,
Huh.
I'm not going to reach out
So if you have an interest in participating with the meeting I'm setting up as leadership team member, please let me know. Let Cindy know so we can add you to that. It can be a Zoom meeting. It doesn't have to be in person. It can be convenient to do it, you know, and probably, I'm guessing it's a half an hour to an hour, depending upon how much conversation goes on. But if you have a specific interest, I would encourage the leadership team members to participate in that discussion, because I think there's some novel things that I've been talking to people about that we ought to kick around a little bit. So.
Another question in terms of engagement, that's a tough thing to do. And it's not an exciting, dynamic thing to talk about.
No.
So I do watch the Zoom meetings typically, or I watch the recording after if I had another meeting one night. Is there an opportunity for the county to share snippets of your meetings that may be more scintillating, I guess, I don't know, that would draw more attention? Maybe post it on a YouTube video instead of putting it in Legistar for people, and then share it. So I don't know if that's a question for communications, for Carla, or.
Also, I would say that previous chairman is not comfortable with social media. Different people might be. One would be Monday night and elect a new chair and the elevator vice chair to chair, the vice chair. There are some people on the committee who are more comfortable with social media and how to engage through social media. I think that might be important.
Yep. Excellent conversation. Thank you, Richard, for that. Anybody have a go back? All right, seeing now, I'll just remind everybody that our next meeting is Monday, January the 9th. And I have a TBD for the guest speakers, but I'd like to request that either Lauren or Kathy consider being our guest speaker for January, depending upon your preparedness. I know we've talked to Lauren a little bit about, are you ready to come and make a presentation of what the Youth Commission or whatever subject you want to cover? And typically that's about half an hour in presentation and then Q&A after it. But if either one of you are ready to go in January, that'd be great. I do have the intent of talking with Sheriff Lykoff as soon as he is officially sworn in, because I know he has a presentation that gets into a lot of the details of the crime that's happened in El Dorado Hills in particular. I've seen the slideshow up. It's presented to the chamber, never been presented to the Board of Supervisors, but hopefully we can bring it at least to the Community Council meeting and for everybody to understand. And this is more the trend stuff. It's not like what Detective Garola presented to us, what's happened last month. This is more longer term trends. And I think it's important to understand where our community's been with crime rates in the past in certain areas and what they have changed to. Some of them are declined, some of them have increased, right? And then the magnitude of the change. So hopefully we'll be able to entertain having the newly sworn in Sheriff Lykoff at either our February or March meeting be the guest speaker. But do either one of you want to raise your hand right now and say, I'm ready to go in January? Okay. Got it. You ready? Perfect. So Lauren will be our guest speaker. See how you negotiate these things? I love the collaboration. So.
But I'm happy to present at one of the other meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a conflict again until May.
Very good. So we'll get you on the February, March, April, whatever timeframe.
I don't know, the short sounds like.
I've got to find out what his availability is too.
Absolutely. No,
But I didn't want to move too quickly there until it's official.
Well, and we're recording this, so I get to see Lauren's afternoon.
Okay, so Lauren will be our guest speaker for January. And with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you for patience. We went through a lot tonight, but hopefully you've learned something, or at least you have a better idea of how your county government is trying to work for you. So it's 7:50 and we are adjourned. Thank you.
And you got your money's worth.